Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday, May 12th, 2026 special council meeting. Tonight, we're going to be going over the governance manual. But to start off, we will kick us off with invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. I forgot to ask somebody, so I'll do it again real quick, and then we'll move on through the agenda. Please join me. Dear Father, please guide us tonight in our conversations. We can come to some decisions on our new governance manual so that everything can work smoothly and efficiently, and that it's understandable and easy to manage, and that it helps keep everything on the straight and narrow and helps us guide our conversations and our meetings in the most efficient way possible. Please be with our first responders who are there for us every day. Thank you for their service. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I think Councilmember Fisher was going to try to join us virtually. Does she hear, and can we promote her to panelist if she is?
So she contacted us and is requesting to be excused.
Thank you. All right. We'll call the meeting to order. Let's start with roll call. Councilmember, what's your name? Darrow.
I don't know. Here.
Councilmember Severs.
Present.
Councilmember Ball.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dunn.
Happy to be here.
Councilmember Klingler.
Here.
Councilmember Kurtz.
Here.
I don't know why I struggle with everybody. I've known y'all forever. All right. And do we have a motion to excuse Councilmember Fisher?
I move to excuse Councilmember Fisher.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion to excuse Councilmember Fisher is approved. All right. We have agenda approval. Do we have any requested changes to tonight's agenda? Not hearing any?
Madam Mayor, I move the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the agenda. Any, those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes 6-0. Citizen comments, there's nobody here, so I assume we don't have any in-person comments. If there's anybody online who would like to make a citizen comment, please send a quick note to our meeting host and I'll go through the rules. If not, there will be another opportunity later in the meeting. Do we even have any guests online? I haven't looked yet. Okay, got it. All right. We don't have any appointments tonight, no announcements, proclamations, or special presentations. We do have a quick chance for city council reports if anybody has anything. If not, we can just hold it to next meeting since it's a week away.
I just observed,
Yes.
Annie and I will be at Ridgeline on Friday for a AP government discussion, local government.
Great. Yeah, I'm sorry to miss that. Yeah. Nothing from me, except just a reminder, I will not be here for next week's meeting. And anything from city administrator?
Just real quickly, wanted to go over the schedule for the farmers market booth. That's the link to that has been sent out. It looks like on the 16th, we have at least one person covering both shifts, which is great. But starting on the 23rd, we have some gaps in going forward. So just take a second look at that as you are perusing your emails from Mikkel to get into that schedule. And that's it, Mayor.
Thank you.
So can I ask a question?
Yes.
So someone's coming in after me on Saturday?
Yes.
Oh, you are?
Mm.
Okay,
All right. And I will.
shift in it.
cool. Thank
I
you.
will tackle, I will be here in town until about 11 on Friday, so I'll make sure I get the bin completed. All right, next up, workshop discussion review of the proposed governance manual. So I was not here for previous discussions. How are we running this? What's the plan, Mark?
So in the progress that the council made up to this point was going through approximately 8 chapters, and we ended, and we didn't go starting from 1 because there were several chapters that included either new information being considered essentially for the first time or a significant change to a current rule. And so we started with those chapters. And we got to the last of them, which is chapter 21. And so what the council had been doing is just going chapter by chapter. And so we can certainly start with 21, and then go and start then sequentially going through the remainder of the chapters that were untouched previously. At the council's discretion, because we do have new members that weren't part of that original conversation, we can revisit any of the previously reviewed chapters that we would like.
Sounds good. Go ahead.
So I went through and I reviewed the manual against the RCWs. And it came up with, during my review, I came up with several potential concerns. So I didn't know how you wanted to address those. There's 11 potential areas. And you guys may have already discussed these and they are in process for Sean to look at them and weigh in and stuff, but I don't know how you want to address that.
I guess I'll look to the council. What would you like to, again, not having been here for the previous
Yeah,
meeting?
absolutely would want to hear that, Rick. Would there be aspects for the previously reviewed sections, chapters that were reviewed in September and October?
Yeah, there is something in chapter 10, chapter 17. Chapter 13, it looks like, chapter 5. Several in chapter 5, chapter 4, chapter 3. And these are single things, and then there's chapter 21.
Well, why don't we, I guess my suggestion would be, let's tackle things that you have for those things that we've already reviewed.
Previously?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then as we get to the next ones, we can.
And so that would
take
be
those in
through
order.
chapters what?
Well, if you look at the list on your,
Yeah.
Chapter 23.
so anything, no, so they're random. So we've gone
Those ones.
over 7 chapters. So anything on the first 7.
So you mentioned 17, for example.
Yeah.
Chapter 17, there was an issue.
So probably easiest to start at the top of the page on chapter 10,
Okay, well,
prohibition.
But give Rochelle a chance to get to
Oh,
where you
sure.
should.
Okay, so chapter 10.
Yeah,
Okay, I will just get there.
yeah, and just slow me down where I need to still kind of,
Yeah, this way we're all looking at the same thing. We're not having to page through our own.
right. Thank you for that heads
Sure.
up.
Okay, we are at chapter 10. You see it on the screen. Where we are.
So this is on page 45, sections, limitations, no use of public.
Okay, hold on, let her get to where you are.
Yep,
So 45, is that right?
yep, page 45.
Oh,
It's 47
wait a
on
minute.
this.
If I may, so the white paper in front of you all, this is the reliable page number to go on, because as we've edited or shortened things, it's
Mhm.
changed the page numbers.
Okay.
So this is accurate.
So page 46 starts chapter
Yep,
10.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that where you are, Rick?
Yeah,
Okay,
so
which paragraph or what section?
yeah, it would be on limitations, no use of public comment or community forum for campaigns.
Hold on, we'll get there.
Okay, so just scroll down, let's see. Okay,
Okay, there we go. Let's read it real quick.
It's highlighted
Yeah.
immediately below.
Yep, the highlighted gray.
So I have the relevant RCWs that I pulled up. Do you want me to list those?
Well, so I guess what's
So
the
the
concern?
area of concern.
Yeah.
Is RCW 42.17A.555 prohibits the city itself from using public facilities, resources to support or oppose campaigns. However, the manual goes much further and restricts what citizens themselves may say during public comment. Washington law generally allows cities to regulate time, place, and manner, but not broadly viewpoint content restrictions unless narrowly tailored. And where the concern might be is this creates potential for First Amendment exposure viewpoint discrimination claims, limited public forum litigation risk.
Okay.
So what are you asking to be changed, I guess is,
So I would need Shane to weigh or Sean to weigh in here on whether that is actually a area of concern, or is that section as stated right now meet the RCW requirements and limits our exposure and liability?
So let me start with the initial premise. My intent is once the council's done is I'll go through the entire document, which will include all of the RCWs or in the language and make suggested edits as necessary. So to the extent that there may be an issue here, then yes, I would incorporate that. If I recall correctly, the statute, I think the intent with this language had to do with councils moving forward with either approving or not approving ballot measures. I think that was kind of what the initial thought process was as far as campaign related matters. I don't think I've never heard, and I can't recall, was the intent of precluding individual citizens from being able to voice their opinions during citizen comments, those circumstances. But to the extent that that's something different, then certainly there could potentially be issues. But I think overall it was whether or not the council wanted to get involved in supporting or opposing, I guess is probably the better language, ballot measures that were coming before the public to vote. And so there got to be some consternation, I'll call it, in that process. So I think the intent here is campaign related matters was the focus, as well as not necessarily having individual council members having all kinds of people coming up and supporting them for a particular circumstance. I mean, I think that was the overarching idea in the dialogue. The council members that were here talking about it can certainly add to it, but that was the premise. It wasn't necessary to prohibit people from being able to voice, their thoughts or what they believe on a particular item. It was more directed at the council necessarily. So, but certainly I'll take a look at it when I review it.
So is that okay, the way I just presented it that way and works for everybody? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I recognize your concern or consideration, Rick, and appreciate it. I guess I would reflect on a guy standing up there and he's going off about a ballot measure. Okay. I believe that's reasonable. I believe. So now that I reflect on it, I guess I wouldn't necessarily need to preclude public comment regarding election matters. So I think that's what the language here is presenting.
yeah, well, and then, but the paragraph under C is, where Sean was weighing, we had the topic come up over the last couple of years, does the council, discuss and support a state or local or state or county measure as a body, or not? And this is, that piece of it is basically saying, that is not going to be a topic.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Because just the language here is no use of public comment, which we call public comment, our citizens up here.
Mhm.
So I'm worried about the vernacular. Am I misunderstanding what we're saying
I
about
think
public
that
comment here?
the intent of the statute is using public facilities, right? And while that's not specifically defined in the statute, it's to use, I'll call it public resources, I guess, for our discussion, is to use that to assist campaign related matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the intent. So the intent, at least the way I took it during the discussion, was you can't get up and it's for staff, it's for electeds. The whole intent is not to use your position over somebody else who doesn't have that option, and use that as an incumbent versus someone who is not, and use those resources to gain an advantage over somebody else in a campaign related matter. So that's the big picture. And I think the intent was to try to make sure that wasn't happening. It may say no per person, and I wouldn't necessarily go with that direction. I probably would have comments on that, but I think it was the overarching idea was amongst city staff, city employees, electeds and whatnot, having some, making sure that they weren't using public resources to do those things that would create an advantage for them.
So do you mind if I, real quick, I guess when we say public comment, that to me just reads because our agendas call out public comment, which is citizens coming to the podium up here, which is not what we're saying on the dais. So I guess just would we word that differently to be clear that we're not precluding a citizen at their own free will coming up and saying whatever they want to say for 3 minutes up here?
I can assure you the likelihood is when we go through this, there'll be a lot of wordsmithing from you.
Excellent.
So
Great.
I just keep that in mind.
Deal.
Yeah, yeah.
Deal.
Annie.
And I was just gonna say so just a tiny bit of history, that when we started doing the rules of procedure, that's how we ended up moving in this direction, was having a longer document. And some of these things are literally cut and pasted from other cities. So the words may be a little bit different, but also whether they fit with what we want to do, I think is the other part of it too, that why we're discussing everything. So if we want to do something different, I mean, that's why we're here to talk about everything too. So, and it, as Sean said, it was to address someone coming up, like you're saying, the difference between us and then someone at the podium. And the focus when we talked about it in the small group was, I lost my train of thought. The focus in the small group was to, hang on, it's gonna come back, to focus on city business. So if a ballot measure is not something we can use city resources on, then we also shouldn't necessarily be, should we? I guess that's the question. Allowing sort of an open mic for things that are not city business that could be construed as using a city resource. So something to think about when you guys are thinking about the words. I don't know that I have a perspective on it other than to hear what you guys have to say. So.
And the other thing too, to keep in mind with regard to the statute, the statute is prohibiting conduct, but giving an exception for a collective response. So what I mean by that is the entire council can say we support or oppose a ballot measure. It's not saying individual council members can do it in their capacity as a council member. If they want to do something separate individually, that's one thing. But the statute is just allowing the opportunity for the collective of the council to say, yes, we support this. No, we don't support this. That's the intent with the exception to what's put in there. Otherwise, the intent is to prohibit conduct, certain conduct as it's set forth in the statute.
Linda, go ahead.
Well, didn't this come up over, I think it was I-2066, that we were encouraged to support as a body and we didn't want to?
I think that was part of the dialogue, yes.
Well, yeah, I still think that,
This section in particular, though, in this chapter is for the citizens' comments.
okay.
All right, is there anything else, Rick? Oh, go ahead.
I appreciate and agree with, I think what you're saying, Sean, is the intent of this. I'm a little bit still concerned with what Rick's bringing up on. And I'm just gonna leave it to your expertise, but worried about First Amendment rights and do citizens have the right to come up and essentially say whatever they want at the podium?
Within parameters.
I don't even know if there's parameters. So yeah, you do, and I don't. So that's what I'm worried about is I don't want to limit somebody's rights to come speak publicly. So, but appreciate the concept of it.
But we also have other cities and entities, right, who, they put limitations on their citizen comments. You can only speak on something that's on the agenda. In this case, we've got the caveat, unless it's on the agenda. So, if there's something on the agenda that is campaign related, then it sounds like somebody can speak. So it's not a total, you can't speak about that. It's just a matter of when you can. Annie.
And so I think actually the paragraph above it sort of dives into that a little bit because it talks about the limited public forum, which means the time, place, and manner of speech can be regulated. In some instances, the city council may limit the total number of speakers or total amount of time available for citizen comment to prevent disruption or undue delay of other necessary business by majority vote of the council. So I don't think it would be mean, I feel like this wouldn't be used very often, right? Like the limitation, I don't know that we've done that, but it's a reminder that it can be done if it's interrupting with the ability to do business before the city. So Sean, if you have other language when you look at it.
And I don't, I see it there and, it's obviously been a number of months since we looked at this, particular section, but I see the comment there, see chapter X, F ballot measures. There could be other parts in the document that also apply to this. And so there'll be some references like that, okay, what does that chapter and ballot measures, what does that say in relation to, what's going on?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right, next.
Next. So this would be item number 2, abstention.
So what
abstention-
What
Oh,
chapter, page?
Okay, I was just gonna give the title first, but it's in chapter 13.
13, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, 56.
Yeah,
So-
I was just going to go from top to bottom, but
Well, no, so if you can do anything on
Oh,
chapter
I-
17,
just the one.
9, 5, 7, 3, or 4.
Yeah. well, then shame on me.
Okay.
But thank you for keeping me honest.
Card.
So the next one would be chapter 5.
Okay, so page 26.
Okay, right?
Yeah, let's scroll back there. Just a second. Oh, come on. Okay, is everybody there? Are you there?
Hang on.
Oh, chapter
5.
Yep.
26.
Okay, and this is related to executive sessions.
Okay, let's get there.
Okay,
Okay.
hold on, Rick.
I'll just scroll down and then just feel free to interrupt me. That.
My breakdown is saying it's on page 29, section E, subsection E, but as you pointed out, Rochelle, that may not be exactly.
So it's executive session.
What page? I'm sorry.
26.
I'm sorry.
It looks like 27 on the electronic version.
A little further.
Yes, it does look like that.
Oh, 20, okay, 3 executive sessions. Is that where you are?
Here we go, keep going. It's number 3.
Yeah,
Keep going.
page 27 and then subsection E.
Right there.
Oh,
Is it Rick?
okay.
Correct.
Subsection E.
Okay.
So why is this a concern? The manual allows council members to be excluded from executive sessions by majority vote for appearance of conflict, perceived conflicts.
Mhm.
Washington law does not clearly authorize elected officials to exclude another elected official absent statutory authority, court order, actual legal disqualification, or attorney-client privilege. Voluntary recusal is appropriate. Forced exclusion is legally questionable and could create litigation risk or political misuse.
Yeah. Roll down just a little bit, Rochelle. There's A, keep going, we're looking for E. Keep going down. Keep going down. Keep going down. There. This is the section that looks like it describes you can vote somebody off the island. So, got to think about that.
So the concern would be that, there might be some exposure if it looks like it's punitive in fashion, that you're not allowing a council member to participate in an executive session. There may be something that, requires a recusal, which recently happened, and I think appropriately. So I just wanted to bring that again before Sean and the council to say, do we have our ducks in a row there? And is there other language that needs to be included or excluded so that we're in alignment and.
So can you give us an example, Sean, of where that would apply?
Rochelle, can you scroll up a little bit so I can see the rest of A? Or down, I guess. Sorry, I want to see the rest of that subsection A under E. Keep going up.
Section A. Okay.
Sorry.
Keep going. Go down to E.
Opposite direction.
Go down to E. Keep going. There, I want to see the rest of
A little
A.
more.
Versus, okay,
There.
there you go.
interest.
So I think that statute's probably just addressing rules that allows it. I don't know that it says that may specifically address the conflict of interest or appearance of fairness. So there's conflict of interest is fairly self-explanatory, right? So an example may be maybe there's a contractual issue and somebody has an interest in that contract, and maybe they took some money. So there's an executive session to discuss relative to litigation aspects related to that. And that council member who's accepted money on a contractual relationship that the city had entered into, there's potential litigation that could be involved. And so you would want to exclude for a conflict of interest. To me, that would be an example of it. The appearance of fairness doctrine is probably more in a land use situation or a quasi judicial matter that would come before the council. And if there was something that was related to that required an executive session to that, I think the intent here is, at least the first part, is to have that individual who may have a conflict or can't be fair and impartial, because that's the intent of appearance of fairness, is that they recuse themselves initially. If they don't, then the intent is to say, well, we're going to exclude you because you have a direct conflict in my example, and therefore we need to talk about what the options are for the city, especially in a litigation situation. I don't, I think the statute, and I'll go back and look at the executive session statutes, but I don't necessarily see that as an issue if someone has a direct conflict of interest. Or if there's in that example too, I think you could potentially see where that individual would not have a fairness or would have a fairness issue.
A bias, yeah.
Yeah, correct. So, otherwise, if you don't have that situation, you may never be able to have that dialogue, right? And the council has to give direction in that example as to what staff is supposed to do relative to that circumstance. So, could there be other issues that come up with that? Yes. So it'll be factual. I mean, I don't know that I can think of in the 20 plus years I've been with the city that's ever happened. That there's been a council member that's been excluded from a executive session. There may have, but I don't recall one. So I don't think necessarily that's going to happen. I think the intent would be most of the time the person is going to recognize, yeah, I may not be able to participate if that was the case. But I'll certainly take a look at it, from that perspective. But at least at first blush, I'm not necessarily overly concerned that may not, or that would be an issue because of a circumstance like that situation.
I'll observe the intention of having rules within the governance manual is to handle situations which we've never encountered and to prepare for adversity, which we couldn't even imagine. So, given the situation you described, we just have to role play into, there is, I'll call it an adversarial character who seeks to create disruption. And do we have procedurally an ability to reasonably act in that situation? So I wouldn't foresee, for example, in any way need to use or exercise this rule with the company we're sitting with today, but we have to lay the groundwork here for a situation we've not yet encountered.
And you don't necessarily, by the rule, it becomes an enforcement issue, right?
Mhm.
Because remember, your rules are passed by resolution, right? They're not passed by ordinance, so it doesn't have the force of law behind it. So excluding there's not going to be a basis in law relative to the actual rules. Now, there may be some statutory issues that are in play in them that there would be, but the rules themselves, as it relates to the passage of them by resolution, doesn't have the same effect as if it was passed by ordinance. Because then that once you pass it by ordinance, becomes part of the municipal code.
Summer, and then
And I hear that clearly. It's just within our rules. But if we were in this situation, would that person have an opportunity for a comment or an appeal or something during that during that time. So somebody presents, I think X has a conflict of interest. We're going to vote. Do they have a chance for a comment or I mean, obviously in this group, we would say yes, but
Yeah.
that to me is the only piece that I would see as missing.
I think probably how it would, if you're asking how it would play out practically, here's how I would envision it, is there would be something on the agenda for an executive session. We would call for the executive session. And to the extent that there was someone that had an issue, I think the request would probably come from the mayor, or me potentially about, if it was known, a recusal, or for attendance during the executive session. And then there would be a motion and a second and a discussion with regard to that individual being eliminated from attending. And then there would be a vote, and then off you go to the executive session. So during the course of that,
The
that
discussion.
individual would have the opportunity to express themselves during the motion process as to whether they should be able to attend or not.
Makes sense.
That was exactly what I was gonna bring up too. Is this the appropriate document for us to maybe outline a little bit of a process by which we do that? And maybe the buck kind of, if it's a conflict of interest, that it needs to be brought to our city attorney, whoever that may be in the future, and that the city attorney maybe comments on it yep, I see this as a conflict of interest, and then the council's able to maybe more educated dialogue.
I think, again, practically speaking, should the situation arise, which again, I haven't seen it, but so I think it's very, very limited. It's going to be factually based. So it's going to be a case by case basis when something arises. If somebody has a particular bias or conflict of what that situation, everyone's going to probably be able to see a direct conflict. Like in my example, the bigger issue is if someone has an indirect conflict. And what does that look like? And is it enough of a conflict relative to how indirect it is that someone may be biased as a result of that? Example that comes to mind right now is maybe it involves a family member of some kind, right? But council member is like, hey, well, that's not me. Yeah, maybe my son or daughter, but I can be fair and impartial. Council may feel differently, right? So everything's going to be factually on each case that may arise, and to have to address it individually. I think the intent here is just to say, hey, if that situation does arise, as Dan says, if that situation does arise, there's an ability to address it. And this is the way to address it. It may never arise in the context of an executive session. But it may arise in an open meeting, which we've had, here recently. So I think we'll just have to evaluate it. And this is just an option. The council can choose not to even do it, right? If they don't think there's an issue. But if there is, this is a process potentially that you could take.
Great, like it.
All right, you good there? All right, next.
First, I want to say this is a very strong document based on my review. It does take bits and pieces from other documents, which I think is just smart. Why reinvent the wheel? And yeah, there's some things that we're going to have to take out, like references to Ballard and but Spokane Valley. But those are easy things.
Yeah, we
to
know all
fix.
those.
Yeah. So. Okay, so my, and I apologize, I should have put these in order. I did not. My next one again is back in chapter 10.
So you're page 40 something.
46.
And on mine, page 46, but I don't know that that's true.
So the section
Part of
starts on
chapter 10.
46.
The part is 90-day public comment ban.
I'm gonna find it.
46. 46?
Does it say?
What header is
Say
it
90
under?
days.
Yeah, it does say 90 days.
Keep going, Rochelle.
What, at chapter 10, Craig?
Yeah, page 48.
Oh,
Bottom of 48, last
Oh,
paragraph.
there we go.
Thank you for all the assist. you
There it
guys.
is. Okay.
All right.
Disruptive.
okay.
Oh, well,
Okay.
I like just throwing them out better than that.
And that's a given. But now we're just saying, okay, you got a 90-day out.
Note to self, don't make Chris upset. She will take away your birthday. Okay, so the relevant law would be First Amendment Public Forum Doctrine and Public Meeting Framework, which is RCW 42.30. The reason it's a concern potentially is courts generally permit removal of disruptive speakers from a meeting, but long-term speaking bans usually require due process, neutrality, appeal standards, narrowly tailored restrictions. So the concern is a blanket 90-day suspension is unusually aggressive and could create constitutional exposure. Most municipalities instead remove the speaker from the current meeting only. And then if they have to escalate, they use trespass or order laws for severe cases.
If I may, Mayor, I think probably and I would tend to agree with Rick. I think probably the easiest thing to do is you would just remove for 90 days in that public comment and just write in a potential suspension of their privilege. So that way it gives the opportunity, and it may end up being the circumstance where it could be trespass or it could be something else. I mean, generally speaking, it's hard to remove someone from a meeting, especially physically, unless they are combative, there is a safety issue, or something along those lines, or completely disrupting, because the first thing is generally the meeting will just be either a recess or adjourned, is usually how it will deal with that circumstances during the course of when it's happening. So this is just my initial thought looking at it, is you can say, could be a potential suspension. We don't know what it looks like, but it could be through some other mechanism, i.e., like you said, trespass or some other forum that would indirectly do the same thing, and then not necessarily have a time frame for 90 days.
The one thing, now that Rick has brought this up, that does seem to be missing in this section that we had before was the ability, yes, this says a 5-minute recess, but there also, because I've done Jurassic Parliament way too many times, there also should be the ability to adjourn to another location.
Right, yeah, I mean.
And we
it
don't
used to
have
do
that in here. And what we don't have is, and whether that means we all go home and dial back in 15 minutes, because we cannot calm things down here. And it may be, I mean, gosh forbid, it get dangerous or whatever. We adjourn to another location. We never really put together a process for that, but I think we do need to continue to have that in there as an option.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the discussion too. And and you can probably correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think this isn't something we have 90 days in our current rules of
No,
procedure.
no,
This is something
no.
that came from somewhere else.
Yeah, we don't.
And that was inserted. So I mean, this is an example of what I'm talking about from initially when I said, hey, I'll go through this, and I'm saying, well, I probably wouldn't agree with 90 days. I would remove that
Yeah.
and just do it this way with a potential suspension just with my first, which gives the option and that it may occur and gives the city flexibility of what that may look like. And in the end, it may ultimately be a suspension, but it may be as a result of a trespass and has more enforcement behind it, relative to that statutory ability for the city to act.
We also have to recognize that the city clerk does not have the ability to turn off the speaker's microphone. We can mute them electronically, but we need to look at that too. I usually, as you see in practice, I just tell them to stop. Most of the time they stop. They haven't in the past, and and then, we have, the other instances when people break in online and we start singing Christmas carols.
Yeah.
Missed all that. But yeah, I think, just to stop them again. If they don't, then maybe there's a recess or whatever that happens. Because I know that our one speaker a couple years ago now, she was not stopping, and luckily she finally did, because Deputy Chief Morgan at the time was getting ready to physically remove her.
Mhm.
So
Yes,
we
she
haven't,
went.
yeah, and she did leave when he got close, but he didn't have to. But yeah, so we need to clean that up a bit. Go ahead.
And I think somewhere there was something about the adjournment procedures. I just don't remember where it is.
And that's the problem with these documents. It's
Yeah.
like it's in one place, but not another. We'll get there.
And that's, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's one of two places that I do know. It's either statutory language or it's MRSC recommended language, one of the two, as it relates to adjourning to another location, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I just can't remember off the top of my head.
All right. Go ahead.
I'm just curious, when the new city hall, when the new city hall is built out, there's gonna be larger rooms. Could that be the new location?
We could be, adjourn and just have it in a separate room
Yeah,
and exclude the public, and we're allowed to do that. I
yeah,
think at that point. aren't we?
You could, if, I think an example of that would be, yes, you can adjourn to another room, and if it has audio visual, you can
right.
send it out.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yep, you could do that.
We could broadcast the lobby or back to the
Sure.
chambers, but we would be in the other room.
Right.
It's on page 38.
38.
Adjournment due to emergency or disruption. That everybody will leave the room, leave the building
Okay.
potentially, and then it'll be reconvened as appropriate. So
Perfect.
that would probably be the section for it.
Okay. Yeah, and again, maybe we need to, at some point in the future, figure out what that looks like ahead of time, because that's what happened in Spokane last year. They adjourned and they didn't have a plan.
Mm. What did they end up doing?
I don't remember. The thing that stuck out to me is they didn't have a plan, and I like a plan. All right.
Huh.
All right, next.
Okay, so again, apologies, this is back on chapter 5. And it's in chapter 19, but I'm just gonna do it in chapter 5.
Page.
Chapter
And-
5 starts on 26.
Yeah, it's has to do with special meetings.
I'll get there. Extension, public notice, types of meetings, executive sessions,
Topic 20.
special council meetings, section 4. Keep going.
So is it 26 on hours or?
Yes, in chapter 5, section 4, special council meetings.
It's like page 29 on the virtual copy.
There you go.
Okay. Yep, that's it. So, it's also on, in chapter 19 and has to do with, Mayor Pro Tem appointment. That's on page 69, but like I said, we'll just focus on chapter 5. Why this is a concern, relevant RCW is 35A.12.120.
So are you on 4A? What subsection of 4 are you in?
Well, let me tell you what it's about. and I
Okay.
think that might be over.
All right, thanks.
Easier.
No
narrow it
problem.
down. So why this is a potential concern, Washington law establishes quorum rules, voting thresholds, and majority of whole requirements. The manual sometimes effectively requires unanimous attendance before action may occur. Local rules may suspend procedure, but they generally should not override statutory quorum structure, create a de facto supermajority attendance rules. And so this could create some operational challenges.
Okay, can you get more specific as to which piece? Is it the piece about how we call a special meeting, or where?
The requirement that all 7 council members be.
Section C subsection 2.
Oh, I missed that.
This one right here, you?
That's what I'm
Final
reading. in
decisions
this
should
second
only be
sentence.
made or
If all
concluded at
seven
a
council
special meeting of all
They
7.
Receive the meeting notification.
If
Oh.
they receive notification, not that they have to be there, right?
I can't see that, seem to find
So
the.
it's not that they
We
have
just need to
attend.
know,
Before.
confirm that they received the meeting notice. They don't have to be there.
And then in 2, final decisions on issues should only be made or concluded at the special meeting if all 7 council members confirm that they received the meeting notification. Unless there's an emergency.
Right.
So it doesn't say that they have to be there, it just says they need to have received the notice.
It's happening.
Okay.
Well, that was easy. Oh, go ahead, like whichever one of you wants to go first.
Go ahead.
So, but if it is an emergency,
Then That's an
And-
exception.
Then all 7 do have to be here. Is that,
Do not, no, that
Do not.
exception is they do not have to have confirmation of having received notice. So if you can't get a hold of someone, let's say someone's out of town,
Mhm,
you can't get a hold of them.
right.
And there's an emergency situation, you don't have to have confirmation of notice to hold the special meeting. You can move forward with that. Otherwise, it's just confirmation of notice has been,
Yeah,
Nice.
if the city
Received.
catches on fire, people aren't gonna probably be checking their
No.
phones for an emergency meeting.
right.
Right.
So, but it could be that you have to get together to make a decision.
Right.
Would we just consider, because this is pretty specific to emergency involving injury or damage to persons or property or likelihood of such injury or damage? Almost like just take that out. Just leave it as emergency.
Well, so
imagine
the
emergency-
top part of that paragraph though does call out specific emergencies that are permitted by the RCWs.
So maybe that can just get handled in the cleanup part, like,
And I think in a lot of these, Sean, as you go through these, if they are quotes from the RCW, RCWs can change, and we've run into that before. If it's just as effective to reference the RCW and not the language in the RCW, and I know that creates a challenge for, okay, well, then we need to look up the RCW, but if RCWs change in between
Yeah.
there are tons of RCWs referenced in here, we can't always keep up with it.
Yeah, and I think the intent though too is, we all know that any RCW could be theoretically changed
Right.
anytime the legislature gets together each year, right? So the idea is there may be language that we can put in here that says is now or hereafter amended, right? So if it's any, and that could go through anything
Or
in
can
the
we put
document.
that like at the beginning of the document? Make
Right,
that
that's what I mean.
disclaimer.
You can
Okay.
have that from the standpoint of
Super.
anywhere, if you make reference to an RCW, it could change theoretically, because, the rules of the procedure don't get changed every year, right? You could go a number of years and then say, okay, well, let's clean up. I mean, for the longest time up until COVID, there was a completely different section on how people could attend remotely.
Mhm.
And then when COVID hit, the section we had in the rules was basically unusable in the context of what it looked like. So, but theoretically, you could just put some, they could change at any time, and you could just have some language that if they are changed by the legislature, then the
Mhm.
new language would apply. And remember, you can't have rules, or for that matter, an ordinance that supersedes a state statute,
Right.
right? So to the extent that there's a conflict, it wouldn't even apply in the rules anyway, if you had something different in it.
And then when we were putting this together too, part of it, hearing Sean say, don't quote the RCW, put it in there, but then also trying to find a balance of not putting RCW, go here for this, go here, like what you're saying, not being able to actually read the document about what we're asking for, if that makes sense. So the reason that a lot of the things are highlighted in green is because those are things that do need to be double checked to make sure that they are still accurate and everything too.
And when we get the
Mhm.
final version of this, are we gonna the electronic version, are we gonna hot link the RCWs?
I hope so.
Can we please?
I'll leave that up to Mark.
Sure, yes, we can make any edits to the document to make it more.
It would just be very convenient,
Sure.
especially if there's an outsider looking, so they don't have to go look up the RCW. If they just click the link, it'll open up for them. Sorry, that has really nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight, but it was on my
And
mind.
if I may,
Yeah.
to add on to Annie's point, I mean, and what you've asked, I will be reviewing every RCW that's
Oh,
in here as I go through it.
Yeah.
But I think the other part of it is, if you just reference the statute every time, you wouldn't know exactly what was said in the
Yeah.
governance manual. You'd be like, oh, wait a minute, I gotta go find this. And then you're like, well, what does that mean?
I think my bigger concern is quoting something.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I'm just saying from Annie's point is you're trying to say something to allow the council to have an idea, but it may be the support for what you're saying is coming from that statute. And so to the extent that you need more clarification or something, you can go to the statute. But here's just to give you an idea of what you're trying to say, as opposed to if you just said in this paragraph C, go see 4230-080. Right? You're not gonna get anywhere with that because everyone's gonna have a different take on what that is.
And that's kind of what I did. My intention was to compare it to the RCW, but not, narrowly restrict the language, because it has to be, the spirit of the intent, not necessarily a direct quote of, because it doesn't necessarily illuminate, what the RCW is, and especially in the context of Liberty Lake and its application. So I don't know if that provides clarity or not. And I was trying to say, we should say it like the
Oh, that's
RCW.
okay.
I like the word illuminate.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
thank you. Cool.
All right, what you got next?
Next one. Well, the next one needs a disclaimer. Has anybody seen A Few Good Men?
Of course.
Okay, and after this one, I do not want to code red. This is just what it brought up. And it has to do with chapter 4.
Page 22.
And it's pages 22 through 25, I believe. And it's regarding city administrator authority potentially overstated in the manual. So why this is a concern under Washington Mayor Council Code City Law, the mayor is the chief executive, council sets policy, administration executive executes policy. The manual sometimes implies the city administrator filters council access, controls information flow, determines significance of council inquiries, and operationally this may be practical, but legally, statutorily, authority structures should remain clear. So I don't have a big thing here. I just was called out. And so I think it behooves us to look at it and say, yeah, we've been clear in the wording only. I know that's not how it's executed.
Okay, so I'm still trying to figure out where exactly in chapter 4 you are.
I think most of
pages-
it.
Oh, the whole thing? Okay.
Mayor, since you were here, I've got a couple of thoughts. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that I'll obviously go back and read it, and I don't remember it verbatim,
Yeah.
but this particular section, I think the intent and the dialogue was couple reasons. One, in the past, there have been council members that are going to staff continually and circumventing either the city administrator or the mayor relative to whatever their function is. And so staff gets put in a position of what am I supposed to do when I'm getting something from an elected official or a council member, and then I may be being put in a position where the mayor, who's in charge of staff, or the city administrator is telling them something different. And so it was to try to balance the idea that everyone is on the same page if something is necessary, working the flow of a request, and making sure that there isn't something that is created as a result of that with regard to staff. Protecting is not the right word, but just allowing the staff to do their job and not put them in a difficult position of knowing what am I supposed to do here relative to whatever that circumstance may be. I think that was at least the initial premise of what we're trying to get at with
And I
that
think when we
aspect.
first started to try to do this unofficially, it was taken by some people as trying to restrict access, but that wasn't the point. The point was trying to make sure everybody was on the same playing field and had the same information. Because like Sean said, we would have council members going to directors or even people not at the director level, which we discourage. We keep it at director level and above, and then coming in with information that they didn't share with anybody else and trying to weaponize that. This way, if the question gets asked and the answer goes back to the entire council, they know what the question was and they know what the answer was, and everybody has the same set of information.
Yeah, I
that
think
helps.
that's super valuable because I have heard, of past occurrences where that happened and it disrupts staff in doing their role and providing the necessary services to the community, which is their primary function. And it feels like there's been a lot of effort on the part of you as the mayor and Mark and others as directors to still make themselves available so that, you know, you can teach new bloods like me the ropes and stuff without, you know, me becoming a disruption. I think, would people say that is a fair description of the current order?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't have a big deal there. I just,
Okay.
it's part of my kind of assessment.
Yeah. It's good to have the still kind of outside feedback, having not experienced
Yeah,
everything.
not being present for said occurrences.
Okay.
I'm not sure this next item really needs to be discussed or rehashed because it feels like the council city is really on top of OPMA. So if there are no concerns around that area, I'll just skip that one.
Is there a specific chapter or section
Yeah.
of the governance manual to review?
Yeah, it's in chapter 3.
Communications.
Yes, exactly.
There you go. Particular section or subsection of chapter 3.
Pages 18 through 21.
I'm sorry, did you say page 21?
Yes.
Okay.
So it'd be under the heading Rochelle of State Public Disclosure Act.
There it
and
is right
Open
there.
Public Meetings Act.
Okay.
yeah.
I think
Okay.
you passed it. The
Yeah,
other way-
go back.
The other way.
Mark, in your latest copy, what page are we?
Yeah, go, yeah,
18.
18,
Oh,
what I'm looking at.
keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
Rick, is it State Public Disclosure Act and Open Public Meetings?
There you go.
Okay.
That's it.
Yep. So why this is a potential concern is the OPMA prohibits collective deliberation outside of public meetings. However, it does not prohibit informational exchanges, social gatherings, incidental communications, and lawful non-deliberative contact. And the manual sometimes states restrictions more broadly than required.
Can you give an example?
Don't have an example. I apologize. I should have done that next step and I didn't.
There's some language in there that talks about being at common meetings and such that.
Well, in that situation, Mayor, if I may. sorry,
Yes,
In
absolutely.
that
That's your
situation,
time.
I think that happens all the time when council members together of, oh, we can't have 4 people together. That's not the intent. You can have 4 council members together. It's a question of whether those 4 council members are taking some type of action in their gathering. So.
We're discussing a future action, right?
Correct. So, there's a vote that's coming up in a couple of council meetings and 4 of you are discussing how you're going to vote at that meeting.
Mm.
You're potentially taking action in that conversation. If all 7 of you are out at the farmer's market on a Saturday and happen to be there and you're around talking to each other, but you're talking about the weather, your kids or something else, that's not an issue. You can do that. So, the Open Public Meetings Act is obviously making sure that if there are things that are happening amongst the council, it's open to the public. It's during the course of a meeting. And there's opportunities for the various things that need to happen during the course of that meeting. So, but I know sometimes, you know, if there gets confusion as to what council members can and can't do when they're gathering. You know, if 4 of you are going to a conference in Olympia and you're flying on the same flight, I've had that question before. Well, how can we all fly together? As long as you're not talking about, you know, sitting in the same row and talking about an action, then you're fine. So.
I could strap Rick on the wing or something.
because I'm chatty.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean.
Then I would
example
be sitting next to NEL because I like to sleep.
The upcoming RCW or ACW conference, you know, you can all, four of us could be there,
Oh, we
be in
usually
the
sit
same row.
Yeah.
And we could be talking about our grandchildren. It's not.
And I don't want to say that you can't, that you have to not talk about city business. Keep in mind, you can have some dialogue, especially in a situation where it's something that's going to come in an open public meeting and you're going to have dialogue about it. I mean, I'm not saying, hey, sit down in a meeting with the four of you, setting aside the quorum and what the requirements are. But if you're at the conference like that and you're talking about something that is going to come back for a vote at a public meeting in the future, that is still meeting the objective of the Open Public Meetings Act. So it's not like you can say, oh, I can't talk about that, you know, from that standpoint. If two of you are talking about someone, but two others are talking about the weather, you know, that's a circumstance. And so it's, again, a case by case basis. And you're not necessarily, I'm not recommending that you sit around and talk about conversations in the city of the four of you and at a dining room table somewhere. But it's not a complete prohibition in that context either.
I remember situations, when my dad was on council, so we're going back a bit now, where, you know, council members would try to get him into discussions, you know, privately, and he was really, really a stickler for this. He would not even like go out for coffee with anybody because he would rather have the dialogue in an open meeting like this. I think he may have gone a little over, but you know, that's just, you know, some people like to handle it that way. And I try at the farm, and even though I don't usually get a vote at the farmer's market, I try to stay away from policy discussions with whoever else is there, just for the appearance. Because they can be construed poorly by outsiders if they don't really understand the rules. Linda, then you.
Oh, just an example, just what, 2 weeks ago, Annie, myself, Dan, and Summer were all at the town hall, you know, and we were discussing, oh, and you were there
Yeah.
too, and, you know, we were just listening to what was going on,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I mean, you could have situations too, like the AWC conference where people are getting up and talking and they're saying, hey, we do this, it's about a road project. And several you go, heck, we should talk about that at an upcoming meeting.
Right.
There's not a problem by having that kind of conversation. You know, the decision making and the dialogue of what you're going to do and the action that you're going to take is going to be during the course of a public meeting. So those situations will arise. The intent is not to prohibit you from having any dialogue, because otherwise, if you only had a couple hours a week or, you know, every other week to make decisions, a lot of things wouldn't get done. So sometimes conversations will happen outside of a council meeting, but to the extent that you're taking action on something, that would happen during the course of a meeting.
But we do agree, because I don't, unless it would be something that I can vote on, am I a little bit more free to have those discussions then?
Yes.
That's. Want to make sure, go ahead, Hugh.
Because I'm just asking when you're going through this, Sean, and the wordsmithing of it, that we not be more restrictive than OPMA in our internal document. I think it's plenty restrictive, and I value OPMA very much, plenty restrictive, and I also very much value having coffee with other council members at times and getting educated on things that I'm not very educated in. So
Right.
It's been a wonderful thing over the years, and let's not restrict ourselves further than required.
All right, you good?
That's it. And I just want to say thank you for indulging me.
No problem.
Great.
Thanks for the work,
Does
Rick.
anybody else have anything on the chapters that had already been reviewed?
No.
Okay, then, not sure.
So we would go to chapter 21.
Yeah, it's just funny to me seeing them all out of order. So chapter 21, page 75. Let's get there. Oh, wait.
Why are we doing these out of order?
Well, to remind everybody, when we first put this initial batch in front of you, it was because when we compared the proposed governance manual with the existing rules of procedure, these chapters contained either wholly new sections or covered sections that had some significant changes proposed. And so we wanted the council to have the opportunity to go through those things at the top. And chapter 21 is the last of those. And then we can go back to just starting at the top and going down if council chooses to do that. So chapter 21 is the advisory boards and commissions, and this is one that's actually been discussed quite a bit, and even recently with the report that the Community Engagement Commission brought before the council several meetings ago proposing an ordinance change. And so with that, I'll turn it over to the council for discussion.
And, you know, I'm, if you guys just want to raise your hand and then go, if nobody else has had their hand, so just talk.
So this is one area that also came up. Communications with city council. Page 78, I believe, is where it is.
Uh-oh.
And
What page was that? I'm sorry.
78.
no, it can't be 78. It's communication with city council. Council members should not attend advisory board meetings.
Correct.
Where is this? What,
Page 81,
81?
81.
Yeah, and
Communications.
that comes from, and I think it's also in the mayor and city council handbook from AWC. But that comes from, again, been repeated many times in Jurassic Parliament sessions because elected officials attending commission meetings can come off as intimidating and trying to influence is the reason behind that.
Yeah, and that's some of what came up. The potential concern is there is generally no legal prohibition against council members attending advisory board meetings. The concern is only, like you mentioned, Mayor, undue influence, OPMA quorum concerns, and inappropriate interference if that were to occur.
Correct.
Is there language guide in this manual to try and address that?
Yeah, and the manual does frame the attendance as a prohibition, prohibited conduct rather than a situational governance issue. So I don't know if there's a way to go in there, Sean, and parse it in some way so that it's a little bit more descriptive of what's allowed and not allowed, or if it's just fine the way that it's already in.
Go ahead. What are you gonna answer? Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably maybe this is for the new council members. I think kind of what we did before, and Annie, you can chime in here, is to the extent of how the council wanted to have certain language in here, in or out. We didn't necessarily get into the legality of something unless there was a specific question like we just did, for example. But it was, what are you trying to achieve with this section? And what's the language? Is there something that's caught someone's eye, the language to change? And then to the extent that there was something legal, it would be me going through, because it's tough for me. I certainly can opine on certain language or something like that, but a lot of this governance manual, at least a portion of it anyway, there's other language in the manual itself. So it's tough to say, okay, well, let's do something specific on this section if there's other sections that may deal with it or relate to it or have something there. So I can certainly do that, but I think what we did with the first 8 or 9 chapters that we had, and Danny, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, was to say, okay, this is what the council's looking for, and let's put that language in there, and then I'll go through and wordsmith it, as I've said, and to the extent of this is why I think we should do it, or no, let's don't do it, or it's fine, that kind of scenario.
So like with chapter 21, we don't have an appointment process written down anywhere other than in some of the individual ordinances. Some of them have specific criteria about who can be appointed and when and where they need to live and all of that. If we were looking at doing something like what's in here, we would also then want to look at the ordinances, because some of these would actually conflict with the way the ordinances are today. I think I remember boring everybody to tears when we were talking about advisory boards, and I think I did something silly, like read it out loud at a meeting in the middle of a really long meeting last year. But I guess generally, since we haven't had this before, what do you guys think about this being our selection process for advisories and boards, does this reflect what we do now? Are there things that we do now that are different than this? I think those are the kinds of things to think about when you're looking at this. There's some processes of how people, like the mechanics of it, are appointed. There's also some new things. Again, these are things from different cities that they do that if we don't want to do them, we take them out. But about what we would be looking for when we're putting people on a board or a commission, what we would be looking for if we look at reappointing somebody to that. I think there are parts and pieces of it, like the mayor appointment process. That seems like what we already do. So does the council confirmation appointment. I've not seen where it's been written down about how we notify people. So that's in there, what the process is for that. What happens when they resign, how we would dismiss them. Those things aren't things that we've necessarily had written down before, or expectations of advisory board members. So it is, I mean, this one feels like it's a bit longer of a chapter, but when you guys were looking through it, was there anything in this chapter that stuck out to you? Like, I don't know why we would do that.
I actually appreciate the clarity of the appointment process, specifically. I know that's kind of been a point of concern or contention for a lot of council members in the past. I believe confidently it is the mayor's privilege and authority to interview and then to provide to the council for confirmation. I don't, for example, as a council member, want to interview candidates necessarily prior to selection. I believe the mayor is in good position to have the authority and the judgment to be able to do that. Then for the council to be able to say vote, approve, or reject that nomination. So I appreciate the clarity of the appointment process.
Did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I'm back. I'm still back. I'm back on, this is always, it's confusing to me. Council members should not attempt to influence or persuade advisory board members on matters referred to the advisory board. I get that, but we should not attend advisory board meetings in person to not unduly influence advisory board deliberations. But just a few weeks ago, one of the, I don't remember what meeting it was, members of the planning commission stood up at the podium and said, you know, we're welcome to their meetings. He encouraged us to come. Are we not, see, I don't, what's.
You can, my recommendation would be attend virtually. So you can listen or listen to it later. So you can hear what's going on.
All right.
But to sit there in the audience can be very intimidating to some people.
Really?
It may not be to you, but it
No,
may
it sounds
be,
great.
yes.
And imagine
Me? I don't think I'm intimidated.
No, I'm not saying that. No, you may not, if you are on one of those boards or commissions, you may not, say you put yourself in their shoes, you may not be intimidated by a council member coming. Somebody else might be.
and you have to put into your framework here, imagine an adversarial character. None of the people sitting here tonight, but imagine an adversarial character and what is potentially then an outcome. To sit and kind of really give people the stink eye, you know, in a meeting, and just, you have to put that on.
Happens. It
It
happened.
can happen.
Yeah, and I mean, you may not even mean to have resting unfriendly face.
Exactly.
But you show up and you have resting unfriendly face.
Yes.
And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, you know, kind of an analogy, and hopefully it fits. It's like when I present in front of my peers, it's intimidating, you know, because they'll know every embellishment, every last thing. And I'm not doing that purposefully, but they're there. And there are the subject matters experts along me. But I present in front of CIOs and CFOs and CTOs all the time. I'm in the room with them. I'm on the phone with them. My pulse is just steady the whole time. So I totally agree. I mean, showing up in the room can be very intimidating for somebody. We've had people show up here, the gal with the river, you know, district, you could tell she was just like dry mouth and just,
Who?
you know.
The lady with
The
the
young
Cook
girl.
and River Forum that
Oh,
said it dry mouth.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, I totally see that. And
Again,
have
it's to
experienced it.
prevent issues in the future. It may not be
Yeah.
happening in now, but it can, and it has.
Well, but then I feel bad for the individual that said, well, please, come see what we do, I mean,
Well, it's,
Just on that, these are new. I think these are new, and in the past that has been welcomed, and I think as we approve this, say it is unacceptable, do not show up.
I wouldn't say unacceptable. I would say
Well,
not
the way
advised.
that's written is unacceptable, if
So
the way I
should
read
not.
that.
It said
Okay,
should not.
well-
Doesn't say shall.
should know.
Okay, well,
Those are two different.
those are two very different things, sure, but I think we want to agree as a body, say, we're saying you shouldn't, don't.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and I would actually extend that, say, don't show up online and make comments either.
Yeah, oh, I'd say definitely no
And
comments,
so we
but
should, I mean,
No,
watch the video back after the meeting.
watch the video back.
Wow.
Then you can see everything that
Yep.
happened. You can see why
Yep.
why deliberation, where it went.
Yep.
But I think we should clarify that and agree on that as part of the
Yeah.
manual. If we agree that that's the concept we're going after, but and it sounds like we do.
Linda, to kind of get to your question, I think that you're asking and I think Dan was talking about is, I think the perfect example is if there's a issue that the planning commission is making a recommendation to the council
Mhm.
and the council's making the final decision on the recommendation from the planning commission. There have certainly been times in the past where the planning commission members are feeling your attendance in this example is precipitating a particular vote one way or the other, because you may have a belief about how something should go that's coming to the council. I'm only using as an example. I'm not saying you're going to do that, but that has happened in the past where council members have an opinion on what is before the planning commission, before the planning commission has made a recommendation on it. And that recommendation will come to the council for final decision making.
Mhm.
And so you go attend a or a planning commission meeting and either voice your opinion or sit there with what Rick described as your opinions on your face. So
The stink eye.
planning commissioners can then feel, oh, I bet I may be in having to vote the way Linda wants me to vote, as opposed to the way I may really want to vote. And so you're avoiding that issue altogether. I said, that's a prime example, I would call it,
Right.
from situations that arise. Anything that's going to come to the council for decision making after a planning commission has made a recommendation.
Okay.
And I will. All right, go ahead, Summer.
Page 82, reports to council. It says, joint sessions annually, and I know, sometimes that's annual, sometimes that's biannual, so sometimes it's at the a joint discretion. So maybe that's just a word choice thing, but we are in this saying that it's annual. Currently we do reports and we tend to do, I know we have a little bit of joint session, but we have more workshops. So I just hadn't really seen that in here. So I don't know if we want to address it specifically, or if when we're actually doing workshops, we want to change that to more of a joint session thing or whatever, but just addressing workshops, with, commissions and advisory groups.
I feel like maybe the joint sessions is like the workshops is the right word. If we want to do that, and then having it be may. So it's not required, but then like, I think that's one of the questions, like, how often do you think we should meet with different boards and commissions? And do we want to commit to that in something like this or something different?
I mean, personally, I would say that it shouldn't be defined in this. It should be something like may or at the discretion of, or something along those lines. But I would also say that we have in the past, I know of at least one or two that I've been involved with, done both joint session and workshops as sort of separate things. So whether that just becomes one thing or we do continue to separate those, again, I just think this is the place maybe to hash it out a little.
Linda.
It does say council may meet with them in a joint sessions annually. But yeah, to her point, Summer's point, yeah, I think it should either be a workshop or a joint session, not one or the other.
Session/workshop.
Yeah, or just work,
Yeah.
just a
As
workshop.
long as it's
or-
consistent.
Yeah.
I think they can those two words can be interchangeable, really for practical purposes, but we need to define what it is.
And the reason I'm doing that, not in a wordsmithing way, is because as a commission member, we were confused as to what our responsibility was, if it was a joint session or a workshop. There's been times at workshops we were in the midst, times we were in the audience, things like that. So I think that stuff does need a little bit of definition for clarity, and also
Yeah.
because we're sending people away to advise in some way and they don't know how they're presenting it and what that's going to look like.
If I can interject, typically a joint session is where you have a quorum of both bodies and both bodies are meeting as their body, right? So if that is the intent, I would use joint session. If it's a meeting where some of one body is present in front of all of or a quorum of the other body, it's a workshop.
Which is why I would keep both in a list here in this, just so we have the option to do whatever it is we want to do, just using both words.
Mayor.
I'm a fan of and/.
That's what, yeah, it's a slash.
Yeah.
I think what, now that I've gone through all of it, I'm envisioning there's a number of provisions that may say shall that will likely turn to may.
I'm not worried.
Throughout the document. Because my general premise in any of the rules and things like that is to give flexibility, and may provisions gives you that flexibility as opposed to shall, because can be circumstances where it may be shall, and just logistically, timing wise, things can't happen. And so you don't want to have some shall language that somebody tries to take issue with. It says this was mandated and we didn't do it. So I envision when I'm going through all this that there may be a number of sections where a shall may turn to may,
Well, then,
depending on what it is.
then we've got the may versus should difference. You know, to me, may is should is highly encouraged.
Yes.
I'd say that's fair.
And then also balancing it with where we need to have some shall and not as much should.
I
You, Sean.
would agree, but I mean, I think that.
don't have enough shall in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, and this is a perfect situation where whatever the circumstance may be, it may not be where you can have a joint session. And if that said shall, some council member or planning commission member say, we're supposed to meet,
Sure.
make the time. And so from that standpoint, may gives you the flexibility of like, hey, we couldn't do it logistically for whatever reason.
And just going through the document, there's currently 414 shalls in there.
Well, there you go. My guess
Probably
will be under.
Way too many
350.
shalls.
Thank you. I think just thinking back to just intents of this section, removing things like annually would be good too. Like it could be on a special, whatever, there's a special project or something like that, that I think annually has an implication to it. Meaning, can we do it twice annually? Well, it doesn't allow that, just, I think the intent that I think we're all on the same page. Pull it back to a may and may meet when needed.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mayor. One thing I wanted to mention before I forget, and I think Annie kind of alluded to it, was some of the commissions were like the planning commissions put together by ordinance and has certain parameters in it. And so we want to make sure that if there are changes that want to happen as it relates to the planning commission or add things to the planning commission membership, the ordinance would be the way to do that, and then just reference it within the governance manual to do it. So you don't want to create conflict by having something in the governance manual and the ordinance says something different.
And to that point too, I think with the ordinance review committee with last year, we talked about looking at all of the commission and board ordinances. Because if there were things that we could do in here that we didn't have to have in, like we had one standard process for everybody and all the appointment and all that, then we wouldn't have to necessarily have that in the actual ordinance itself. So this would hopefully not conflict for long if we were going to do that work kind of in parallel with this too, right?
Right. And I
clean it up.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is we also have to keep in mind, to the extent that the commissions have their own rules, right? We need to be cognizant of that as well, that there isn't something that's, because keep in mind, the ordinance is giving the authority for the planning commission to act and do certain things. You don't want to put every single thing in an ordinance. And case in point be their own rules and how they want to operate and do the day-to-day things. You can have that in the ordinance, for example, but you don't want to get into the weeds because then you have a bigger issue if there's a problem that you can actually address easier within the rules, because otherwise you have to go back and amend that ordinance every time you want to make a change, as opposed to changing your rules that you would have in just the operation of that commission.
Summer.
I know that the next round of this would be double checking this against current things. So, but I'm just, for sake of that, the current list of commissions obviously would need updating, right? But then there's also, to Annie's point, some mention of 3-year appointments. And I know that we have odd evens and some of things like that. But I would be in favor of having kind of more of a look at the individual commission ones and trying to work in that space and reducing some of this a little bit.
Yeah, because this is a governance manual for the council, not for the.
Sure, and I think
Yeah.
there's it's heavy, it's
Yeah.
heavy on that right now, and I don't think it needs to be that heavy necessarily.
But
And I think, Sean, too, I think when we were doing this, the rules of procedure applies to representatives, which are boards and commissions. So figuring out that balance, because if this is replacing the rules of procedure and that covered anybody who's on a board or commission, how to have that balance in here with even having the right words in the right place with elected officials versus representatives, and which parts apply to them and which parts don't too. So yes, I would love to work on the individual ordinances for the commissions with the commissions to get their input on any changes that need to be made.
And Annie knows this, in a significant part of like the social media work that we've been working on, is you don't necessarily want to have separation in the social media policy. You want it to apply to everybody, right? You don't want to say an elected official or a commission member or staff or whatever. You want to try to encompass everyone just so it applies to everyone generally as it works. There are some things it does apply, some things it doesn't. So the social media policy is another example. We were using representative to encapsulate commission members that applies to, and elected officials that applies to, and I think there was one or two others that I'm not thinking of right at the moment. But the intent was we would use a particular term that would cover everybody that would apply. And so as opposed to having to list out every single one every single time and how you're trying to apply something. And if it was only to apply to elected officials, you just said elected officials.
all right. I've got a couple comments on this section. I'll let everybody else go first.
I just have a quick question. Do we have a tree board?
No.
Well, we do by ordinance.
Do
And
we?
I learned that in the ordinance review committee, which is why it's in here.
Okay.
I don't think we have a tree board.
Have we?
Tree City ordinance, is that the Tree City ordinance?
I don't know, but I
Absolutely.
was surprised to find it.
It was probably from the one that was established in the beginning of the city. Is that when it was?
Yeah,
beginning of
it's
the city?
pretty old. Yeah.
I'll have to see if it's still a requirement of being a tree city.
Oh, maybe.
Oh,
That's why I was wondering what
Yeah.
may apply.
Yeah.
Oh.
We've got some tree issues. It may be good to, I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to look into
Yeah.
whether or not we.
I think Sprague's in the county.
what?
Because
I think Sprague's in the
county.
And then youth commissions in here, even though we,
But-
youth commission, we don't have one right now.
No, but there's, the ordinance is still valid.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
All right, anybody else?
I think we should change it from tree board.
To tree?
Trees are made out, boards are made out of trees. I think
Oh.
we should change it to something
Oh,
other than tree board.
Yeah, humor. All right.
I've just got a couple things, under, hold on, I made a couple notes here. So where are we? Under qualifications and application in the same chapter, probably up farther, I think it's page 77. If you go
Okay.
back a little, keep going
Qualifications.
back, page 77-ish. Yeah, keep going back a little to up to residency. Okay. So under, you can go down some of number 1 there. So I don't have anything under residency, but under Oh, and we've got a numbering error here. So the second number one,
Oh.
sectional composition. That's interesting. So this is interesting. The city council will not appoint multiple members of this from the same family or household to a single board of commission. But going back to, and I get the point, but it's kind of in conflict with the fact that two family members can serve on city council together legally.
So
Or
that's,
elected.
But we don't allow it on the commission.
that's, the nepotism
Nepotism.
is in the social media policy, that came up and was, I think we amended. I'm trying to think, is that the personnel policies? I think we changed the language in the personnel policies. Mark, does that sound right? That at one point we changed the language as it relates to nepotism issues or
Yeah.
family
Yeah, with
members,
regards to
and then,
employment.
yeah, and then it was subsequent, that's where it originated. And then we subsequently changed that. And I think the language is similar in the social media policy, which was passed by ordinance.
And then the question was whether nepotism belongs in here or if it belongs in the.
Right.
So we have,
Right.
that we haven't figured that part of it.
Correct. I think that's.
I just thought it was interesting that, you know, you got boards and commissions that aren't elected, but at the elected,
And it doesn't have to be that way if you
Yeah.
guys want to change it.
right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think, well, it doesn't matter to me.
Well,
I'm okay leaving
Matter
it
to somebody
there.
else.
were you also with your dad?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and he was actually appointed first, so that was the main discussion, you know, about, you know, arranging votes, and the funny thing is after he was appointed, the very first two votes, we voted opposite each other. So, but, you know, if you guys want to leave it, that's fine. I just thought it was an interesting comparison. The next thing we have,
I don't have a problem if, you know, an uncle and nephew want to be on a commission together. I mean.
I still think from the basis of appointment, meaning designated selection, it just could create the appearance of unfairness or concerns about relationships.
It just not.
Yeah.
worked.
Just housekeeping, so, just above that, and, just we go just a little bit, okay, there you go, stop. Persons wishing to be considered for appointment or reappointment will submit to the city clerk's office through the application portal and on the city website. We still get handwritten applications. So we need to be able to account for that. And then it also goes on to say, mayor will review applications and make appointments based on the criteria outlined below within 14 calendar days. Is that 14? To me, that reads 14 calendar days of the application, but if we open the applications for 2 weeks, and we get the application on day one, that means you have to interview and make the decision possibly on the last day of the applications are still open. So I would argue on that it should be within 14 calendar days, or whatever of the closing of the
Yeah.
application.
Oh,
And then, there was another one. Oh, and then just above it a little bit, I missed this, under publication process, just a little bit above the page break there, keep going. Keep going. There you go, stop. Shall be advertised for a period of 2 weeks. I would say a minimum of 2 weeks. And that's all I've got right now. Oh, no, I take that back. Number 2, if you go back, keep going down, page 77, back under knowledge of municipal and planning process. Keep going. There you go. Number 2, council will consider background, experience, and knowledge of the, what do you guys think? I would say applicable municipal process, because if you're on planning commission, that requires different knowledge of a different municipal process than Parks and Arts.
mhm.
Sure.
Yeah. Is that right?
Applicable.
All right. I'll shut up now for a while.
All great.
Okay.
Nobody needs to feel bad about their contributions. You've been minimizing yourself. You're minimizing yourself. Everybody just say what you gotta say.
I gotta go back to my women's leadership class and read the book.
Now,
There we go.
is there a way we can keep the requirements to apply on website with the idea that we're trying to modernize and make it, you know,
Well, but this
21st
implies that we
century.
won't accept, I mean, we have older members of the community who
Mhm.
prefer to handwrite their applications, and
I think they're quaint. I like it.
And handwriting analysis.
But I mean, we also don't want to also discriminate, right? What if somebody has a disability and they can't do it online?
I agree.
Or have a computer.
But we also could modernize so that you could, for those who can, just, instead of printing it and writing it out and bringing it in, that in itself could be a challenge for people who have mobility issues and access issues and things like that.
It's both.
Right? Then accept both.
Could we say something about if you need assistance? Well, I don't know if you'd say it in here, but that we would provide, I assume we provide assistance now if someone needs help filling out an application.
We do.
Yeah.
Okay, we can kind of address that somehow. That'd be great.
Yeah, that could be on
The application.
all of each of the applications can have.
But what it says in here is, says that they have to do it online. So if we can figure something out in this document, that'd be great. Okay, next, anybody else in this section, this chapter?
Before we move off of chapter 21, Mayor, I just want to make sure the council has a chance to consider, and based on the way that this chapter is put together and the discussion that's already occurred, I think I understand the answer, but I just want to make sure. If you'll remember, one of the things that was brought forward with the most recent Community Engagement Commission's attempt to get their group stabilized was a proposal to remove the geographic requirements on the appointments. And we have person-related things listed in the governance manual. So I assume we would not address something like that in the governance manual. That would remain in the ordinance of each commission. But I just want to clarify that so that I have an understanding of moving forward, how to maybe advise each commission.
Go ahead.
The subsection about residency that's in there currently, does that cover it? Does that not cover it? Would it be under that?
So I think all of those are related to the eligibility of the person. And so you could certainly consider that. I think that particular commission currently is the only one that has almost a district type of setup with its appointments. And so I just wanted to make sure the council had an opportunity to recall that conversation. And if you have a desire to include some kind of language in here, or leave it where it is and handle it through the review of each individual commission's ordinances.
Good.
I would push towards leaving it on the ordinance side.
For sure.
Go ahead.
And then at the same point, I would like to do that work sometime soon on the ordinances and would be happy to work with anybody to do that, to get some input from the commissions themselves on their recommendations, but then also where things can be unified amongst them and where they need to be unique. But I think the taking away the district part makes a lot of sense.
And I think some of the commissions have already done some of that work and have already suggested the changes. So if we can, I would rather see some idea, have them maybe mark it up and then get it back to us, and then we can review and go from there. Linda, go ahead.
CEC is the only one that has districts, right? Or that have, yeah, specific, okay.
Yep. Okay, anybody else on this chapter? No? All right, moving on. 22.
Yeah, I would suggest for Rochelle's benefit that we just go down to 22.
I'm going to turn this over to Mayor Pro Tem for a second while I hit the term. Go ahead, Annie.
When I was reading this today, and I haven't read it since probably last year whenever we were working on it, but I noticed there's some things in, like, I think this one in particular with some other ones where there's probably more words that need to be in here. And there's some duplication in other areas too. So if you guys see any of that, or Sean, as you're reviewing it too, it hits a little different if you haven't read it in a while. So
I think it's a fair collection of statements of good behavior. And I appreciate the placement of this, and I think it's, to some degree, the language is, that's here is important. I agree it can be trimmed in terms of the total content and count of words, but some reference to, I guess I say the good do's and don'ts is important. Are there any aspects of this that you'd remove or that you take exception to? I don't want to talk about that. Yeah. I think everything makes sense in reasonable term. Anyone want to make specific word changes then for this section, chapter 22? Alrighty. For lack of change then, we'll drive forward to chapter 1, page 10.
Mayor Pro Tem, if you don't mind,
Please.
could we do chapter 23 before we roll back up to 1?
Sure.
Okay.
Adherence to governance manual.
Is that a big section?
It just says do it.
We'll call it enforcement.
3 pages.
It's pretty lengthy.
A hearing.
This section is highlighted in gray and I don't know why. I don't know if there was a comment on the side. Because this would be a new process. And I think that would be one to think about whether this is something that we want to do or not.
I always think enforcement is the most difficult topic.
Well-
There are very few, I would say, truly meaningful actions that can be taken.
And I do see that the header in green is enforcement or hearing examiner via code of ethics. And I'm wondering if that's why it's highlighted, that whether we would consider this process or we would just refer to a hearing examiner process, a code of ethics violation for violation of this instead, and take this out.
Yeah,
If I may, since our chair is gone.
please.
I
You.
think this is one of those areas I like to rely on Sean's ideas on how can this be enforced? And I mean, when you go back and wordsmith, if you want to put some thought into it, what can we as a council body kick off a council member? Can we give a hearing examiner? We decide to pay the money for a hearing examiner and council members deemed to have violated our own governance manual. Do we even have the legal ability to do anything? I'm not saying it would not be wrong to still call somebody out for that, but I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's multiple things in your comments. I think that if you go back up to the beginning, it talks about the rules are not gonna have anything to do with superseding statutes, ordinances, things like that. So those are gonna govern first, as they may apply to a particular situation. The code of ethics is already part of the municipal code. So to the extent that there is an issue with an ethical issue, that will be handled, by way of the hearing examiner. There are some changes that some of us have talked about in the past that you will see as part of that process. I should say that as we go through this process in relation to that. So I can see some language in there that I probably would change. Because I agree with Dan that enforcement is the hardest part. And to have language that mandates that every single time something has to be followed or adhered to, it's not going to happen. Because things will get missed or circumstances will arise. So I think in those situations, you want to have a little bit more flexibility. I think the intent is everyone is supposed to adhere to this, but is everyone going to be, oh, turn to section or chapter 15, you're violating chapter 15. Well, what if no one recognizes that you violated chapter 15? Then what? Right? So I think the overarching theme is these are the rules and regulations that the council and others are supposed to follow. And to the extent that there are issues, then we can address them, whether that is through an ordinance, through that statute, or some other process that's already in place. I think, you know, removing a council member is a severe sanction. And so there are certain statutory circumstances for that to occur. So to say you're a violation of the governance manual is probably going to be an issue, you know, to do that.
Removal.
Yeah, right. So, you know, but I'll look at its entirety of what that may look like. You know, because for example, if you have a council member that misses 3 meetings, statute allows you to get rid of them, right? As opposed to a violation of the governance manual. I mean, you can have that kind of situation, right? So it just kind of depends, but I see some language in there that I would probably revise just looking at it right now.
That's exactly what I'm asking is if Hugh decides to be a bad actor starting tomorrow and I found something in here that's not covered by statute, hey guys, I don't care what you say, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Right,
That's what I'm gonna do.
right,
Then what? What are you gonna do about it? Is
right.
that- Don't think anybody here is thinking that, but there have been things in the past that we'd say,
Absolutely.
hey, Dan, you keep doing this and we don't like it. And Dan says, I don't care. Well, is there anything we can do? That's what I'd rely on you. Sorry, Annie, go ahead.
No, you're okay. And I think you guys, a couple people mentioned moving a council member. We can't do that. I don't think that's
Do
even
that.
written in here. So just to be clear, that's not written in here. I think for, if there's a commissioner who's doing something, I think that's what's potentially contemplated in here. But I don't know whether this whole section needs to be in here. So like you guys have talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first paragraph, right? I don't necessarily see a lot of issue with the first paragraph. It's more the next paragraph that would probably revise or whatever comes after that. I mean, the intent, and that's why I asked the initial question, I go, is this section very long? Because I'm thinking it wouldn't be that long because the intent is just that everyone follows these and, you know, to the extent that statutes or ordinance grant more authority, that's what you're going to follow, right? That was my first thought when I saw this. And so to the extent that there's more there, obviously I'll go through it. But when I got to the next paragraph, then I was like, well, okay, well, there's a little bit different language in there relative to what that is. And again, this is one of those, and I think Annie may feel differently, but when I've talked with Annie about this in the past, the premise was throw it all in there
Yes.
and we can decide whether we want it or not, and then take it out. It's easier to have it in there and take it out than to think about it and write it down in the course of the discussion, right? This at least gives you an idea of something you may want or not want. You take it out, want or not.
Councilman McClintock.
Yeah, I was just curious. It just seems like, you know, enforcement is kind of a loaded term. And it feels like the nuclear option. Is there any way to add something in that's an interim? So we don't have to deploy ICBMs? You know, like, you know, in arbitration in some situations is you know, I'm just using that as an example, not saying that that's how we would go, but it would be nice, especially if you had a basically functioning member of the council, but they were needing a little bit of redirection or chiding, you know, raise them up in the way you want them to go, and they won't depart from it kind of concept, so that we as a body could kind of, you know, redirect and say, remember, we agreed on assuming good intent or doing this or doing that, so that it didn't have to just be a nuclear option in here.
Just as I mean, it makes me think a little bit about the impeachment process at the presidency level and say, if Hugh did something wrong, I'll keep pointing back at myself, and everybody else said, Hugh, you did this wrong.
it was in the manual, you did it wrong, and now we publicly told you you've done it wrong. We're not necessarily kicked out, but we publicly made that statement, and now I might want to think real clearly about that, because there's a reporter sitting in every council meeting, and that's gonna go somewhere, and that is a repercussion in and of itself as an intermediate process, I think. I mean, I don't know if that requires, we think that requires an arbitrator or something along those lines, but I mean, that's a pretty big deal, I think, when you're on city council. 6 other city council members say, shame on you, and it goes out in the paper.
Yeah, I think that
They're all,
the
yeah.
ultimate design or intent is to curb the behavior, not necessarily remove the individual. And if there's an opportunity to retain that person and save money for the city, because we're not, spending money on, the people that would enforce, remember their title, then that might be a nice way to potentially do that.
Anyway, oh, never mind. I came into partway through the conversation. I'm good. I just found.
Mayor, too, I think, we're talking, as you said, the nuclear option. There are multiple steps usually that happen. First, it starts with a dialogue saying, hey, what's going on, trying to figure that out. That may be offline conversations to try to get at what the situation is. And that may be multiple conversations, whether that's from other electeds, whether that's from the mayor, whether that's from Mark, me, whatever the situation. I mean, that's generally happening. Then it may be, pointing out sections of it, the governance manual, the rules, or the code of ethics, or whatever the case may be. So I think there's multiple steps and dialogues or things that are happening before you get to the point where you're in a meeting and you're pointing the finger at someone and making a public statement to someone. I'm not saying that doesn't happen or hasn't happened or it won't happen in the future, but I think there's usually multiple steps before you probably get to that level. Or a situation arises where it may involve either a court or an administrative process, i.e. the hearing examiner, review or involvement.
I know, well, I'll get just a second, I know for me, in my private work, I deal with difficult people all the time. And when I have a team member who, is probably going down the wrong path, I never call them out in particular. I never call out, for example, their customer or whatever the situation was. I send it to the entire team and just remind everybody. They know who they are when they read it, but I also use those learning opportunities on a good way too. Hey, thank you. This is something that went really well, and this is why. Again, not calling anybody out, on positive or negative, but those are how I like to try to handle things. As a kind of a first step. Obviously, dialogue too, but I think that's a lot more effective sometimes than, like you said, going right to the public finger pointing or anything like that. Go ahead. Okay.
I feel like maybe that's the part that's missing in this, and I don't know whether it belongs in here or somewhere else, like a procedure type of a situation where what would the educational steps be before you got to something like this? What would trigger something like this? And again, I'm not married to this staying in there either. But when you think about having someone who doesn't believe that things apply to them and doesn't listen to those things, then what? I think that's, so how do you get to encourage the less invasive, restrictive communication and education and good intent? And then what if that behavior continues?
Yeah.
I think that would be the spirit of this. Whether this, I don't think this encapsulates that at this point.
Yeah, because we've certainly run into that summer year next.
I appreciate the opportunity to dive in deep to all of these. I think this particular chapter, since it's about adherence to this manual, there's, signatures and written reports signed by you and given to this person and enforcement. I would think that I'd like to see what Sean kind of weeds out of this first before I dive too deep into it. Because to me, there's a lot of enforcement things going on that I feel like I'm just going to be parsing this out for a while. That would be my take. Not necessarily for all the other ones, but this one in particular.
I'll just say I'm in agreement. One of the biggest values of this is just a very clear set of expectations. That's the majority of what most people need. And we can go back and reference, we can do it in upfront. Hey, Rick, I've forgotten chapter 13. Did you know this is what we do? You know, and
Yeah.
very,
Right.
very easy conversations with most people. And so, but I just like to see where does it go
Yeah.
if we have a bad actor?
Well,
And
yeah.
there's things, I'm gonna use the farmer's market where I will never sign up for the farmer's market. And it's not in our expectations unless that's changed since I was gone. Is it? Is it in there now?
I don't know.
Oh, gosh.
Just social pressure.
That's just, I just don't. And I said it last time I was on council. That's not what I do with my weekends.
You
So-
go fishing, we know.
Yes, that's right.
But,
But again, if the council
Yeah.
decided you are gonna be on the farmer's market and you're gonna sign up 2 days per
year,
year, whatever. Okay, that's the expectation.
Yeah.
Hugh's in.
Yeah.
All right,
You can do 2 days.
not happening.
I clearly know my objective when I review this as far as the farmer's market.
Sean?
well, I think,
Right,
you know,
John, put it in.
where this really all should start is holding everybody, each other accountable at meetings, and you guys, not just me, being willing to speak up and say point of order.
Absolutely.
Because I feel a lot of times, I love my I feel statements. I feel a lot of times that I'm the bad guy. You know, and sometimes I'm trying to catch people's eye, like, are you gonna raise a point of order, or do I have to do it? Because I don't want to always be the one with the hammer. It is in your guys' purview to, state a point of order. If somebody's being offensive or they're off topic, that's where I used to get, there's a couple council members in the past who used to get off topic and they would get mad when I would, when I would, kind of bring them back around. But those things, I need your help as well to manage that. And I think if we can do that here, and right now, like I said, we have a very agreeable group. And I think everybody here be very accepting of those, immediate reminders. But that's not always going to be the case in the future, which is why we have these more in-depth options.
So clarification, the point of order is just amongst us.
Mhm.
If there's somebody misbehaving in the audience, do you call a point of order on that
think you-
situation?
Yeah.
Can.
Yeah, you can, just
Okay.
especially if I don't see it, because sometimes I'm busy watching you guys and I may not see something going on, and you'll hear me every once in a while going, "Psst," because we
Yeah, like
have,
sidebars and.
yeah, because I see sidebar, I'm like, "Okay, quiet." But yeah, if you see something going on or hear something going on that I don't, yeah, please let me know.
And you
Because-
do that by saying, Mayor, I'd like to call. a
No,
point
you
of
just
order."
say, you
Point of order.
can
Interrupt.
interrupt
Point of order and-
anybody and just say point of order, and then I'll say, state your point or something like that.
Okay.
Probably just say what? And
What?
tell me. And then I make, and then I rule, and then there can be an amendment, there an appeal, right? If you don't agree with my ruling on it. So,
The intent of point of order is to bring the discussion back to what you were discussing, right? And how do I say this? There are many times council members, certainly all in the past, not this council, will take tangents on many levels and very deep. And so you get away from whatever the original discussion was amongst the council.
Yeah.
And so the intent is, if there's an agenda item that you're talking about, the point of order is to bring the conversation back to the topic. And then the chair rules on the point of order, and that's the process. That's the
yeah,
intent.
and I also, giving historical issues, there may be a time where if I'm continually having correct the same person, it seems that comes off like I'm bullying. And so if we have buy-in from everybody else trying to help in that process, it's really beneficial. Go ahead.
And I think sometimes you may not notice you're wandering.
Yeah.
If you're
Yeah.
talking for a little while
Yeah.
too. So, and assuming good intent, right? I think there
Yeah.
have been times where you were wandered down a little path
Yeah.
here, which.
And I'll let
may
people
be
wander a little
useful,
bit.
And it may be interesting and sort of relevant. But I think even as we got into some of the governance manual and rules of procedure last year, there was becoming an acceptance of, if there's a point of order, I'm not mad at you, man. I'm not mad. We got to get back on track.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's not being rude, but we're trying to keep everybody back on track.
Right. Yep.
So as long as people understand that it's
Not punitive.
It's,
Not
it's
punitive.
meeting management.
Yeah.
Really is what it is. It's meeting management. Go ahead.
Well, I found in this group, we haven't done it a lot, but, council comment seems to be a place where that's a hard call to
Mhm.
make. So I guess I'm just sort of putting that out there right now. That's something that I'd personally like to work on, but that's a sticky little place.
Yeah.
But I found that that's where it maybe is a little more present with this group or the recent groups more so than other times. I don't know,
Noted.
So boxing and kind of soliloquying and,
100%.
yeah. Noted.
Okay. We're still on 23, right?
22 and.
Oh.
Mayor, can I interject?
Yes,
For a second?
yes.
Rochelle, did I see something before that had the meeting from 6 to 8?
Oh,
Oh, tonight?
There's a start time in the agenda, but not an end time.
It was on the invite, I think on the,
Is that where I saw?
that's where I saw it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
I just wanna
invite, the
make
calendar
sure.
invite was
no,
delayed.
there's
Yeah,
nothing on.
okay.
There's
It's-
nothing on
I just
here.
wanted to make sure, so. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, and that's what gets confusing back to, when we get to the agenda pieces of this. We used to have and I think this is where we can correct this going forward. We used to have, when we had special meetings, it was like 3 things. It was call to order, roll call, and then the discussion, and that was it. We went
My
back to
preference.
this, what?
It's in my preference.
Yeah, we went back to this in absence of really having that called out in the governance manual. So hopefully going forward, we have a format for the special meeting. If not, we'll add it. So,
Do we wish to project an end time?
yeah, what does everybody think about how late we want to go, since we are talking about that
Generally or today?
today?
Oh.
I mean, technically, meetings go till 9.
Yeah, that's right.
And we've only gotten through 1.5 new things.
Yeah, I would say,
3
That
chapters.
wasn't.
I thought the intention was to go to 9, so I'm,
Does anybody have an issue with going till 9?
Only if I can break the rules and make a text during this meeting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah. Currently, as I stand. You're using your.
But, and I'm sorry for for my longer excuse, chief called me while I was out, gave me an update on the traffic accident. So sorry. I
Saw
was
that
not
after
thinking.
I was late. I got
Yeah.
stuck behind that.
Yeah, so anyway, so he was calling me with an
Early.
update.
It
Okay, so 9, let's go
It
ahead.
wasn't fatal, was it?
Not yet,
No.
but yeah, we'll get that. We're off topic. Go back.
Oh.
It's my fault.
Point of order.
My fault.
Oh.
Thank you.
Don't be
My
offended.
fault. Okay, we're on 22 or 23? Where are we?
Well,
So we're rolling back up to chapter 1, and
Oh.
as we're doing that, does anybody need to adjourn for a short time, or
Bio break.
do we want to do that?
5 minutes.
5
I will
minutes?
do 5 minutes.
8:08.
Thank you for remembering the niceties.
Back at 8:08.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. All right, I'm trying to scroll up here to our chapter 1 is where we're starting. Okay. Is there anything particular in this chapter that anybody wants to address?
Good overview.
Yeah, it's pretty much self-explanatory. All right. So if anybody doesn't have anything on chapter 1, I guess we can scroll ahead. Okay. Chapter 2.
Page 14.
Oh, I'm getting there. There it is. General powers and responsibilities. Anybody have any comments or questions or suggested edits on chapter 2?
I will ask,
Go ahead.
um,
We're more casual tonight. We're gonna.
okay, cool. It's under role of council members, and it's in the bold established policy. There were other cities who have a higher threshold for approving contracts.
Hmm.
So that's why that's highlighted, to see if that's something we want to discuss. I don't know if that's something that's done here through the rules of procedure or elsewhere in
That's the in the financial.
financial policy? Okay.
Right?
Yes, although you can certainly discuss it here. There is a provision in the financial policy that covers this directly.
At that amount, Mark.
No, no, this would significantly increase the amount.
And this was from a bigger city.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
again,
If we just want to
We just
update that to
strike it.
match the financial
yeah.
policy.
Yeah.
Or add approved contracts as provided for in the financial policy. So
That
we
way
don't have
we
to
update it,
put a
yeah.
number in.
That's the direction I'd go, yeah.
Okay. And, oh yeah, enact laws. Okay. All right. Anybody else on? Go ahead, Linda.
So, of course, emergency response need to develop a reference. Are we gonna have? some-
Where are you? Just real
At the
quick.
very end of
Last
chapter
part of-
2.
Okay, hold on.
Page 16.
Okay.
So there's nothing there.
Let Mark or Sean
So there
address.
should be something, I mean,
Well, I'm not sure what I'm gonna address there. This is just on the introduction?
No, keep going, keep
Or
going
different
down.
powers?
Michelle.
Whoa.
There you go.
Thing.
Emergency response in green.
It's saying what is the council's role and
Role.
duty in emergency response is essentially what this would cover.
well, would that fall under what we talked about earlier, about a special meeting in the case of an emergency? I mean, Safeway's on fire. I mean, it shouldn't.
That's not us.
Well, okay.
That's the.
Here's what I would say. If you're striving for something to put in here, I wouldn't put it in there, right? If you've got to think like hard to figure out what you want, I would recommend you not put something in there. I mean, I don't, Annie, maybe you know what that thought process is here.
there was a fire. We just put in here, we would follow Spokane County, like we would put a link to something. I think that was,
I don't know that being in an emergency condition would change the council's powers and responsibilities.
I would agree with that. I think that if an emergency situation arises, there's not a notice requirement. For example, like a special meeting, right? You'd have 24 hours notice to have a special meeting. An emergency situation like that, you could meet to make decisions. You wouldn't have to have something like that in your governance manual, if that's what the thought is.
emergency. I couldn't leave town. Like, like I would be, I assume, expected to maybe have some sort of,
I mean, the
Decision
intent would be to
making.
get a quorum, right? You gotta have a
Right.
quorum to meet. I guess my thought process is if you're out of the country and you have a requirement that you have to attend, maybe we can't get a hold of you when you're out of the
Right.
country. It could be 9, 10 hours ahead of us, for example, right? So that's what I'm getting at. If we're struggling to try to find out what it is for an emergency response, there's already parameters for the council to meet and to take action. And if the intent here is for that or what you can do, I think there's things that already allow that to happen. Because ultimately, you're gonna be making decisions on what course of action the city should take in an emergency situation.
Well, and a lot of times it's not the council who's going to be doing that. It's
I-
going to be another emergency
Right.
entity who's running that.
The main thing may be that I can think of right now primarily is some funding option. Right? There's money that needs to be approved in some regard to do something.
But we also have provisions, though, that we can the council can retroactively approve in those situations, correct?
Yeah, and I think I don't know if there's anything in the financial policies. I'm not as familiar with.
There
those.
is, yeah.
Yeah, so there probably is, like I said, something in that regard. But I think probably the main thing in an emergency situation is do we need to do something funding wise? Do we need to do something to save property? Or what's the course of action in that context? But the rules aren't necessarily going to matter in that regard because the council would have authority statutorily to take such action anyway.
we would just participate as normal.
Yeah, correct.
Good.
What did you say?
So
I
this
didn't
is
hear
what
you.
artificial intelligence told me. When it may be absent, some smaller municipalities or those without formal emergency management statutes may not have a dedicated emergency response section in their governance manual. Instead, emergency procedures may be contained in separate emergency management plans or annexes. The bottom line is, if the municipality has a formal emergency management program, it is common for that program's guidance to be integrated in the governance manual.
So we can always add that once it's finished.
Sure. Or our size dictates that it's reasonable to add it.
Anybody else? Okay. All right, anything else in chapter 2? All right, chapter 3, communications.
Actually, chapter 6.
Oh, I was just going through.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there we are.
Did through the-
Chapter 6. Oh, my favorite section, parliamentary procedure. I'm not scrolling fast enough.
Dan, did you say 31?
31.
Yep. Anybody?
So part of the governance manual is for it to be also used by the public. So a little bit of an education if they want to learn about why we're doing what we're doing. Also a manual for us to learn how to do what we should be doing in the beginning. And something that people can reference. So that's why it was fairly descriptive in the parliamentary procedure piece of it. I think it was Spokane Valley who had a matrix and had like check marks and who does what when, which was super interesting and informative, and it was easy to read too. But I think that there have been times where we have been like, that's not how we have done that before. And so again, this is just writing it down. And if you guys don't feel like it's what we have done or what we should do, speak up.
So on the seating arrangement piece, which is the next bullet, this is new, and part of the I like the flexibility because especially like if you look at this year, we have 3 new, 1 sort of new member, right? And so if all 4 of those people were seats 1, 2, 3, and 4, we have all new people sitting next to each other. I like to intersperse people so we have somebody more experienced in between in case there's a question. I know we hate the sidebars, but sometimes you do need some guidance. And so that was always my intent on some of the seating arrangements. But this is up to you guys, whether or not you want to actually do it by seat. Obviously, the mayor pro tem sits out of order sometimes, depending on what that is. But I don't know how married you guys are to sitting in your numbered seats, and which side does that start from? Go ahead, Hugh.
Kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't recall there ever being a problem
No.
in the entire history of the council. So.
And actually, it actually helped solve a problem at one point. We had a couple members we had one member who liked to do a lot of leaning behind the seat and try to engage somebody else in conversation. And I helped with the seating change there and put that person next to someone who wouldn't put up with it. And it fixed the problem. So to have that flexibility really helps. So if it's okay with you, then
I'm just
maybe,
happy it captures my best side.
there you go.
I have an unfortunate position when there's this.
Yeah.
I'm totally-
So if we maybe change that something to, maybe the mayor and the mayor pro tem will work together on the seating arrangement or something like that with,
It's fine,
yeah, whatever that ends up like, if that's okay with you guys.
fine.
Okay.
Let's do it. Yeah, no
Yep.
opinion.
I mean, I think the key thing, as long as it's not musical chairs and there's one chair missing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you got it off and nobody told you. Not a chair.
You can
Okay.
Take mine away from every meeting.
Mhm. All right, anything else in this chapter? And I do, as you see during the regular meetings, I'm really conscious of doing my best to always say council member in your last name. Is it okay, when we're in less formal situations like this is to me more of a workshop. Is it okay if I'm using your first names? It doesn't, okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
fine.
All right, anything else in this chapter?
That was chapter 6.
Okey-dokey.
1 to 8, page 39.
Thank you, sir. We can get there. All right, order of suggested, oh, here we go with their meetings. All right.
Oh.
So it's interesting. I see that citizen comment was moved to after proclamation, special guests and appointments. I'm sorry, under suggested order of regular business of regular meetings, page 39.
Can be item F there.
I was curious as to why citizen comment moved to after proclamation, special guests, appointments and honors.
Because sometimes citizen comments took a considerable amount of time. And then I can think of an example where there was a meeting where there was a lot of citizen comments. And then there were awards and honors to be handed out, and families were waiting for hours. So that's what it's trying to fix. I think that it could be something different, whether we just didn't want special
Yeah,
guests and the
sitting
Girl
for a long
Scouts
time.
sitting for a really long time.
Well, could we reserve that for just, the council always has the option of amending the agenda to move that?
Well, and I think
Yeah.
that was the thing, because I think that somewhere along the way, we got locked into having everything has to be on the agenda.
Right.
And I feel like, from my perspective, that if we don't have some of these things on the agenda, I don't know why we need to put them on the agenda.
Just to
Like,
say-
just to say, check, we don't have it. Or,
Well, if you've noticed, we've started to put on no items, which I think helps, because
Yeah.
we have to have everything printed, but we just make sure that people understand that there's nothing.
right.
Helps.
In this suggested order of business, right? Like,
Mhm.
that's like, I just don't want it to be so rigid that you guys can't move something if you need to. And maybe if citizen comments are up there, but we know we've got kids coming for whatever, or honors, maybe those things, you have the flexibility to move them around.
Yeah.
To have good meeting management. I think that was the spirit of changing some of
Yeah.
that around. I think the other thing too is there were a couple things that were maybe renamed or put as something different in
Mhm.
there. So as you guys are looking through it and thinking about how, like, if you were to compare like tonight's agenda to how things would be, if you have questions about that or concerns.
Hmm. Go ahead.
I think that consent agenda needs to be adjacent general business. If you want to draw something out of consent agenda for general business.
I agree.
So move that back to the current location.
Just so they're adjacent.
I'm sorry. Let's go back to
Go
citizen
ahead.
comments. Is there anything wrong with leaving citizen comments at F? I mean, sorry, proclamations, special guest appointments at E, and then citizen comments next? It just seems like
Well,
in general, why do we?
Well, I guess my theory is based on, I almost called you Angel, my daughter-in-law's name. You're an angel tonight. Based on Annie's example, that doesn't happen very often. So I think we want to set this up as how things normally are. And if we come in and we see that there's going to be a lot of citizen comments, we amend the agenda during the
Proclamation
approval
special
process.
guests don't happen all that often either. If we do have proclamation special guests,
Well,
why wouldn't it just go?
But
ahead?
we do. So when we have
Yeah.
like special guests and stuff, sometimes those are presentations that can last 15, 20 minutes. We try to curb those, but we have had some that go pretty long.
And then also to avoid having to amend an agenda. Like, I want you guys to have the ability to put it where it fits.
Yeah, I'm leaning more that way. And maybe special guests move down to informational reports.
No.
I mean,
I see, I think
'Cause
that's
what
more
is it?
of informational reports, I think is replacing council reports. And my report and
okay.
Mark's report. I was waiting for Hugh to finish
That's
thinking
all right.
there.
I'm not really pushing real hard either
Yeah,
direction, right?
okay.
It just, I tend to decide with Annie, go, just put citizen comments after it.
Yeah.
but Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not pushing real hard either direction, so.
Linda,
I think proclamations, special guests, appointments and honors should just be kept where it is before citizen comment. Just so that, like as Annie pointed out, when there's families or Girl Scouts or whatever, they need to get out of here. That way I don't have to keep amending, and also So then I would think informational reports would come after citizen comments. Is that what reports and inquiries, is that what we're changing it to be called?
The definitions for each of the topics are down below too, so. are you
Maybe we
asking-
need to look at that first.
Yeah, I mean.
Why don't we
you're
look at the
asking about-
definitions before we look at the order?
Yeah, what things are like informational reports. So this is what it says currently. Reports shall be brief and focused on keeping the council informed about city-related business. Extended reports beyond 5 minutes on a singular topic shall be considered a presentation and should be conducted in a workshop or under general business if a decision or consensus needs to be ascertained. So I feel like part of this was if for special presentations, it's something that's special. It's not a presentation on something we have to decide about. If there's something we have to if the Spokane River Keepers are coming in to give us something, that would be maybe, I don't know where it would be. Is there a decision to be made? I guess that's the question, right? Who else gives us reports?
Sounds,
Sewer and water district,
Sewer and
fire
water,
district, the
yeah.
commissions.
Yeah.
Well, for example, the gal from Build Ohana was
Mhm.
very, very windy.
Yeah, and
Um,
we're trying to kind of keep things a little more narrow with time.
Well, right, so where would something like that?
That would
fit?
be special, that would be a special presentation to me.
special guest.
It depends on what she's talking about.
Well, on
Is
that
she presenting
particular,
something or is she giving us a report about an update on Ohana? Because that would be an informational report.
no, see, I kind
So-
of, I would say if it's not a city-related person, that it would not be an informational report, at least my thought. Go ahead, Hugh.
That, I was gonna say the same thing, say
Fair enough.
Ohana is a
Yeah.
separate nonprofit organization that is coming as a special guest.
Right.
Informational reports be sewer and water district, fire department,
I agree.
you know,
Commissions.
commissions. We can agree on that.
Yep.
Do we need to call that out in here?
So if we look at
Just for-
proclamations,
just to make it
special
clear.
guests and appointments and honors, definition is the time is reserved on the agenda. As notable achievements or service for City of Liberty Lake to recognize proclamations and to meet and confirm appointments of citizens to boards and commissions.
Going up to the-
So it makes me
Yeah, 'cause-
wonder
but
where it
we-
would fit based on the definitions, or do we
So-
need to
Well,
change something?
those go pretty fast if it's just an honor and a photo and, you know.
It is, and I think about some people who are not as fast.
Yeah. So like special guests would be like an Ohana or River Keepers or something like that. So maybe we need to expand the definition to define what special guest is,
Mayor.
because it's not in there. Yeah, go ahead.
On our current agenda, we have it as special presentations.
Mhm.
And I would go more with a presentation is clearly defined. You're presenting something. A special guest, sometimes that is an honor or something like that. So I think those are two different things. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the Ohana was a special guest. I would say that that was a special presentation.
Yeah.
And that there could be a distinction between a guest and a presentation, and whether we use the words or not, but I think a presentation is a presentation and that could be at a different time.
Yeah.
Separate from honors and things like that.
Well, and that's kind of called out in informational reports where it states extended reports beyond 5 minutes on a singular topic shall be considered a presentation and should be conducted in a workshop or other general business. Do we ever, on a, related to it, do we ever set a time?
We
limit
try
for
to,
those?
we try to on our special presentations or special guests, we tell them 10 minutes, 5 minutes for questions, but
Yeah,
we don't
I mean,
always
the one that
follow it.
Linda referenced
yeah,
was
we've had a couple,
lengthy,
we've
yeah.
had a couple go really long.
So I like what Summer said about having special guests be a special guest. It's a pretty quick exchange
Mhm.
usually. But if there's a special presentation, because I think that language fits, I think everybody else thinks that's a good idea. I think we just need to figure out where it makes sense to put it and put a definition of it so everybody's clear
Mhm.
on who that is. That would be like an outside group presenting to us about something
Right.
where they have content.
Yeah. But
longer
it's not a
than 5
workshop.
minutes. It's not a
us
workshop.
Receiving information, but
Yeah.
from an outside entity.
And I feel like the River Keepers was a presentation.
Yes.
There wasn't a decision for us
Right.
to make.
Yeah.
So that would be a good example of, and so where does that fit? Where would you want to hear that?
So Annie, to be clear, so the Riverkeeper also, you would consider a special presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, where do we put those?
So maybe instead of beating this horse, maybe we go back on this one and kind of everybody noodle on this a little bit more. Linda?
Well, why not have the special presentation after citizen comment?
That'd be fine.
So just a couple changes I think we've talked about now. I want to be clear. Dan talked about moving consent agenda down. So consent agenda would become H. Informational reports would become G. We would add special presentations between F and G.
I don't know, that's what we're trying to figure out.
It
That's what
sounds
I'm
like that's the
thinking.
page that we've been,
Mhm.
am I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between F.
Are you getting that,
Yeah.
Rochelle?
Yeah, after
Okay.
citizen.
Got it.
Everyone, you're
Everywhere.
you're a lot better than I am.
Got a reason not to keep on changing the agendas.
Mhm.
Rochelle has to amend them all.
So if I can point something out before you move on, just to remind the council, in the most recent revision of the rules of procedure, we put some explicit language in there to separate appointments from proclamations. And so here you have it combined, which is okay. Just reminding you that you separated it in the current rules of procedure.
I do
think
like
s-
it separate.
Yeah, the separation is important. So specifically to proceed, we're trying to move appointments earlier in the meeting to defer to, not delay families and other people who've gathered for the event.
Okay, and is there a legal, I'm wondering if there's a reason, so we currently, in the new one, we have public hearings and appeals after ordinances and resolutions. Might there be a reason that those need to happen before ordinances and resolutions, Sean?
You,
Because sometimes we have a public hearing on something and then we have a first read after it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of those situations where, and it's generally some type of property or land use or some situation there where there would be a need for a hearing before passage of an ordinance. So it's probably better to have those situations, because there's, statutory requirements for hearings. And, sometimes it becomes a misnomer when you say public hearing. It's just as we do it where it's an opportunity for people to speak in public.
Right.
That's what the hearing, maybe it's not where it's an actual hearing where there's someone making a decision. It's just the opportunity for the public to speak. And so those situations have to occur generally by statute. And you have to have satisfied those hearings prior to maybe passing an ordinance that would require a public hearing. So I would say, generally speaking, it's probably better to have the public hearing before an ordinance section.
So maybe flip ordinances and resolutions with public hearings and appeals.
Right.
Okay.
There could be. I'm trying to think if there might be resolutions too that could have a component. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm trying to think of past circumstances where there may have been a need for a public hearing prior to the passage of a resolution. And what I'm thinking is there a requirement from another agency or party that would require that before the city could approve something, and the city would approve something to allow something to happen, and they would have to do that through a resolution. I don't know if a grant's what I'm thinking of is proper or not, but that's kind of something that I'm thinking of in the context is there need to be some type of hearing on it.
and then the city passes a resolution to submit something to an agency. Like, I can't think of a specific example off the top of my head, but that's the only thing I'm thinking of as it relates to that. But just generally speaking, I think probably public hearings would be before the ordinances, and probably resolutions would make it better. And I think that's what we have, right now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I had another question. Now I'm trying to flip between the list and the definitions. Pledge of allegiance. Have I been spelling allegiance wrong this whole time? I guess I have. General business. Okay, so, but then we have, general business in J says general business includes public hearings. So we wanted to strike that.
Correct. General business is not a public hearing.
Yeah.
Mayor, if I
then-
may interrupt, Kyle added a note from the finance perspective on that. You could see that in the chat.
Oh, sorry, I'm not looking at Zoom, I'm looking at my version, hold on, sorry, Kyle, I gotta get back to Zoom. From a finance perspective, having hearings prior to resolutions would be preferential, okay, all right, so he agrees, all right. So my question was, we have informational reports, which, and I'm gonna scroll back down here to the definition. Which is, again, typically, it's Mark and me and the council, and everything, but then we also have information only later, which seems to be things that would probably be included in Mark's report.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like information only is like the reminders that he gives, like
Yeah. But do we want to split that up between the regular report, or keep it in there?
I think the intent was for it to be on the agenda so the public can see it versus it being in a report that they can't see unless they go and watch the meeting.
Okay.
Would that be something like announcements? Was,
Reminders, community reminders.
yeah, I mean, to me, that would be the distinction, that it could potentially not be part of his, if he wanted to give that piece to someone else, or if there was something else that would be a place for announcements.
Okay. So I think that can get a little messy, because right now, so we do have, during Mark's reports, we do sometimes have Ben come in, somebody else will step in and give something related as part of Mark's city administrator report, and some of those things might be informational.
Well, and when we were talking about this in the committee, it's hard for the public to know that Ben's going to give an update on something if Ben's not on the agenda.
Right.
So if there's going to be an update on streets, or if the police chief is going to come in, give an update, give his report on quarterly report, whatnot, the public doesn't know that those things are happening because they're not on the agenda. So if those things can be on the agenda in the informational section somewhere.
In the informational report section, or the information only section?
I feel like informational reports, information only probably needs to be renamed as announcements. I think Summer's idea is good there. But a report where someone's gonna present something, or presentation, right? These are the wordsmithing things that, yeah.
Okay, hold on, make a note here. Okay, well, we can go through some of these changes, and then I know we're gonna have another meeting or so. I like to go through some of the
Mayor?
later iterations. Go ahead, Hugh.
This question's partially for Mark, or mostly for Mark. How cumbersome would it be to get a little bit more detail into the agenda from what you're planning to present? I'm sure some of it's day of, or add some of that information into the packets was downloadable.
Yeah, the concern that I would express with including it in the agenda is exactly that. Sometimes late arriving items are of such an import that we want to brief you about them. But if we would be required to put them on the agenda with a 72-hour publication notice, would miss some of those. The goal is always to put the information or make the information available. And sometimes that's after the meeting, but to post it where people have access to it. that would be my comment with respect to the items being published with the agenda.
Part of my concern with this is we could add 15 more bullets on here and go, okay, at some point, somebody just got to watch the meeting that's now publicized and they can go watch it on YouTube also. All about public transparency. All about public transparency, but it's difficult to capture everything. At some point, you just got to go watch the meeting, and that's where you get your information. And I know people don't, but that's how you get the city administrator report or get your updates. So anyway, I'm just concerned about
Yeah.
continuing to add too many bullets. We've added quite a number already, I think. Appreciate the transparency, but I'm concerned with it versus taking information only and leaving it right in the way we've done city administrator reports, which I think work fine. I've never heard haven't specifically asked or polled people, but haven't heard much of negative comments about, well, I didn't know they were going to talk about that. Well, would you have gone if you did?
No.
No. Okay. Go watch it online.
We'll get right on that.
Go watch it online. It's great. Yeah.
Linda, go.
Just-
I'm just curious, why was, okay, so it's reports and inquiries now, city council, mayor, city administrator. When was it decided to change it to informational reports? I don't remember that.
Well, what do we have now? We've got
Reports and inquiries.
reports and inquiries.
Right. Now it's informational reports.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It
to
was
me,
a
that's
year ago.
redundant.
Huh?
It was a year ago. I don't.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but I don't know. I'm just curious why it was changed. Kind of like it the way it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, but now it says reports and inquiries, but we now have open council discussion, which can be then based on my recollection of what that section says, that's more of where the inquiry part would be, I would think.
Yeah, there was we added council comments at one point, but then I think that there were some council comments became longer. So trying to, this talks about, you can, if you have a question, if you want to say something, and it's not on the agenda, you can put that here, 3 minutes or less.
Yeah. Yes, are we putting that parameter in there?
Yes, it is in
Yay.
here. And then extended discussion shall be placed as a future agenda item. We don't need to have at 9 o'clock at night a new topic.
Yes.
It needs to be on the next agenda, or send an email, something. But trying to really define what that space was for, because it was kind of a catch-all.
Yeah.
So if you don't like it, trying to put some parameters around it so people know what these things are, and if this group wants to redefine them, then do that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I was just kind of, we don't need inquiries as part of that anymore because we have this other section.
Yeah, because it was
Yeah.
kind of collapsed into this.
Right.
It can be an inquiry, it can be
Yeah.
a discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe discussion's not the right word.
Yeah. Okay. Is anybody else on this chapter?
So
Or-
are we moving? So where are we putting these special, what do we call it? Presentations or whatever,
I think that,
special
where did
presentation.
we end up with that?
Well,
F and G, right after citizen comment, the first citizen comments.
okay, so that would
Before the,
be,
okay.
that would be G. And then on down, right?
You good with that?
Is that?
I don't hear any
cool for
objections.
everyone?
When Rochelle's got the recording and all that, so
Yeah.
she'll keep us all straight on what was
Yeah.
discussed.
Okay, got it?
Every word.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you, Rochelle.
All right. Anything else on this chapter? No. What's next?
To chapter 11, page 50, 50.
Doop, doop, scroll. Let's
Where
try
are
to
we
make this
headed?
our last one.
Chapter 11.
11.
Page 50.
Correct.
Public testimony and hearing procedures. I'll wait for Rochelle to get there. All right, anybody have any questions, additions, deletions, modifications? So, oh, go ahead. You're gonna
Quasi
speak.
judicial, I'm reviewing, I'm wondering what public participation there is in quasi judicial decision.
Where? Oh, there we go. 51.
I'd say generally not much, if any.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I suppose, and certainly not in a closed record matter, there would be none. Maybe in the, yeah, that's the one I was just gonna say. The next is an open record. You may have it. But I want to say 90+% of the time, the ones that come to the council are generally closed record
Yeah.
in a quasi judicial manner.
The chapter title is Public Testimony and Hearing Procedure. And there is reference to open and closed record with respect to quasi judicial, so
Yeah.
it's appropriate.
I'm going to take us backwards to sign in or public comment. We are not allowed to ask for their address, but we can ask for whether they live in the city limits or not.
Okay.
We went through that many years ago.
Okay.
And then, indicate whether they wish to speak as a proponent, opponent, or from a neutral position. And we don't ask that now, but I guess we can. We also currently ask for what item on the agenda they are wanting to speak about, though people are welcome to speak on anything that's not on the agenda. I just wonder if some of this is, any person who fails to sign in shall not be permitted to speak until all those who have signed in have done.
So
Yeah.
specifically remove the reference to an
Address.
as to information.
Yeah, and if we can, instead, like we have on the sheet,
Where they live.
check whether they're a city resident or not. And I think it's important to specify that they live in the city limits, because there are a lot of people who don't understand the difference between living in the city of Liberty Lake versus the city limits. I know that's really terrible to say, but it is the case. Yep.
Question, do our sheets right now, I think you just said it, do we ask proponent, opponent, or neutral position, or what topic they're gonna speak
They're over
on?
there on the desk. I don't know. Summer, can you grab one of those?
I can,
I can't remember.
I haven't
usually
thought
just read
much
the
about
name.
this, but it's,
Oh, and contact information.
I was gonna say, you need to.
Yeah, we need an email, or if they want follow-up, it's not gonna be, we don't require it, but if they want follow-up, they need to provide an email or phone number.
it says request to speak on item number, so in
Yep.
theory, we know what the topic is.
Right.
I can see a value if it, this doesn't happen very often, but if they're in those cases where there are a lot of speakers. a
Yep,
value
and then I
saying
can arrange them.
Opponent.
Yeah.
Just, I would say leave it in like.
If we can just make it better match this,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
I think too, Mayor, the proponent, opponent, I think generally might be during an actual public hearing on a topic. I think you can certainly coordinate it during the meeting if you want to do it, everyone in favor of something or someone that's opposing something, just in the course of
Right.
chairing the meeting.
Yeah.
But the other, I think, is more in the context of, there is a particular topic, let's say there's a lot of people, can everybody speak in favor of it, and then everybody that, is opposed to it, and give them just their allotted time to do that in the context of what that happens, because it doesn't usually happen a lot.
It doesn't.
Unless there's some specific topic that's a hot button for the community.
And that also helps avoid, we have somebody speaking right after somebody against, and it could get into some of this. If you have everybody for or against speak at the same time, and you're hopefully not gonna have some of that back and forth and people trying to pick apart what the person before them said. There's a lot of more time in between that people to forget.
When people they want to get off the topic of what they were going to
Yeah.
talk about, and they just want to talk about what someone
Yeah.
just said if
Yeah.
they're on the opposite side. And so it
Yeah,
gets to be
exactly.
kind of a,
Okay. All right, so
People
yeah, if we
care
could
about
just
that kind
make
of
that,
things.
make this section better match what's on there. Great. Okay. Next, anybody?
It may match just fine since this is general public comment and not on public hearing.
No, we can add that to the top of it.
So.
We don't have another sheet for
Hearing
public
only,
hearing.
yeah.
And instead of having
Thinking, I
more
don't even
sheets,
know if
just
we need
make
to
it,
change it.
just make it public comment.
Just,
instead of-
just leave it as is and deal with
Yeah.
it when you get there. I'm just, we don't need more work for
We don't need more cost of printing out more
Mm.
copies.
Can I have a scissors with a dotted line?
Anyway, all right, so anything more on this chapter, you guys?
On immediately then to 12,
Mm-hmm,
legislative action.
yep.
Is there, Mayor,
What?
it could take a little time.
Oh, yeah,
for
I
rest of
forgot.
this
Yeah,
on the
okay.
agenda.
All right, so well, if we're done with this chapter, then we'll stop there. How's that? Make a note here. There we go. Doop. All right, so we have no general business. We have no general business consent, general business action items, none. Council comments? Okay, public hearings, none. Resolutions, none. Ordinance, none. Emergency ordinance, none. Upcoming agenda items, we don't have a new thing to go over, so we won't. Citizen comments?
But hey,
Yes.
for upcoming agenda, when are we gonna come back to this?
Can we look at it on Tuesday? Because we don't have the matrix. Okay, all right. All right, citizen comments. We have one citizen / employee here. If you'd like to make a comment, nope. He's good. Do we have anybody online who'd like to make a public comment tonight? Okay, so hearing none, we do not have any executive sessions, and unless there's any other business before the council, I'll let you speak now or forever hold your peace. We will adjourn at 8:51. Thanks.